Hello, everyone. I am Etordi, the Electric Tortoise, and this is the second episode of the Voltaic Ventures podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about Casino Royale, and when I say we, last time we had Atlas, but this time we have special guest Jacob. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Excited to show how ignorant I am about James Bond as a franchise, as I was telling you earlier. But without further ado, there may be some people who are watching this episode because they saw the last one, and if you guys haven't seen that one, then there should be a link in the description. If there's not, you can help me with comments. But if you saw that one, liked how it went, and just kind of clicked onto this one to see how it is, it could be that you don't really know anything about James Bond. I know next to nothing about James Bond.
I know a little bit.
Well, look, compared to me, you're an expert. So, what I would like to do is for those who may not know anything about James Bond, besides like James Bond, then I'm going to invite Jacob to tell us a bit about this kind of as a whole. What is James Bond all about? How would you describe that?
So, James Bond is a Secret Service agent / spy for the British government. In this film in particular, it's basically a reboot.
Yeah.
Die Another Day, which was made in 2002 with Pierce Brosnan. Financially did pretty well, but critically it was enough for the studio and the producers to take a step back and decide to reboot, rebrand. This was around the time of Batman Begins, so they they liked that grittier aspect.
Yeah.
So this is really a reboot where we see Bond fresh on his first assignment.
Sure.
Daniel Craig's really the only Bond actor to have a series of movies that you should watch.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the connection. Please.
My bad.
No, that's totally fine.
So,
that's totally fine.
So Daniel Craig's Bond is really the only one where you should watch the movies in order.
Okay.
All the other Bond movies you can pick and choose.
Whatever.
It really doesn't matter.
But these kind of like gel more together, and
the
you
story
learn
is
things.
interconnected, and there's references, and
cool.
so that's pretty much this one in a nutshell.
Okay. And what about just James? Do you feel like for the people at home who don't really know anything, pretty much he's a spy? I think I was going to ask if there's any more that you want to say, but being that there's so many movies, it's hard to encapsulate all those, I think, in any way, beyond what you've already said.
I mean, this, from what I've heard from experts who've, when I say experts, the people who've actually read the books, Daniel Craig's Bond is really the closest to that actual character in the book.
Very cool.
Bond is a major alcoholic, detrimental to his body.
Yeah.
And this is really the first series of movies that really go more along the lines of that.
Cool.
I also should point out that this is not the first incarnation of Casino Royale.
Okay.
There is a TV movie made where the actor was actually from the U.S.
Okay.
I think that's maybe only about an hour long. And then there was a movie made in 1967, which is not a part of the Bond canon.
Okay.
It's pretty separate, and I don't think the reviews for that are as high. So
okay, cool. And we can get into what you understand about the critical, how it was received, I suppose, after we get through most of everything. We don't have that in the list, but we can jump into that. And would you say that you have a good enough understanding of the other two Casino Royales to give your opinion on how it kind of relates to those two, or do you want to just skip that?
I've seen bits and pieces. I've never seen the other two in full.
Okay.
They obviously have Le Chiffre. They have obviously the major poker game.
Yeah.
But I don't know in detail how. I mean, obviously this movie is much longer. This is 2.5 hours long, as opposed to an hour-long TV movie or anything like that.
Yeah. Then that's fine. We can just mainly focus on this.
Yeah.
Totally down. Now, this podcast is going to be going in depth for the entire movie. This is really assuming that you've seen the movie. And from what I understand, like, I think we would both say you should probably see this movie if you haven't. But just in case you haven't, and just in case you're not yet convinced really to watch it, how would you, Jacob, sell this to the people at home? Like, hey, you should pause this podcast right now, get your hands on it, and watch it before you come back.
I mean, this movie's got great action, easily the strongest story, the most heart. Even in some of the Bond movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there's a hokey, cheesy factor.
Sure. Kind of like a Adam West Batman type of flavor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can definitely say, like, if you're a fan of a really good story, really good action set pieces that easily stand on their own. Yeah. Great acting.
Yeah. And stand apart from each other, and we'll get to that as we go. I found that really impressive.
Yeah. So, I mean,
action.
And even, you don't even have to be a huge James Bond fan to like this movie. I mean, it sets on its own as just a great film. Like,
sure. So it's not like if we haven't been watching James Bond forever that we're going to be like lost. Yeah. Because you were saying earlier it's a reboot. It's kind of...
it's really just a reboot.
So this is a pretty good starting point for anybody.
Yeah. If you're one of those people who are like, I can't watch movies from the 60s, 70s, or 80s, then watch this movie.
Yeah. Jacob doesn't respect you if you're like that.
Exactly.
But, you know, if you're one of those people, then... I'm not going to say if I am. But let's continue. So definitely check it out. And I would concur that you should check out this movie. This kind of brings us into the next section, but I had actually never seen a Bond movie before this. I didn't really grow up watching it until I kind of stumbled upon this, and I'm like, oh, wow, like guns and guys in suits, and I want to check this out, you know what I mean? And I thought it was very good. I was like, whoa, super blown away, especially when I first watched it, when I was not so critical about movies. Not to get into spoilers for later, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I had heard it's kind of just part of like culture, I would say. Like when I was growing up, of Bond, James Bond, shaken not stirred. You know what I mean?
Even though these movies are from a different country, it's sort of just a whole like cultural thing, like honestly around the world, not just in like the US or the UK or anything like that. I mean,
it's that big.
People love Bond.
Yeah. So likely, like we were saying earlier, if you haven't seen this or if you don't know what James Bond are, these are just really to cover our bases. You likely have seen a bunch of these things already. Yeah. But yeah, my background with I was saying, like, that was the first movie I ever saw. I thought it was amazing. I immediately got my hands on Quantum of Solace, I think is what it's called, right? And I thought that was garbage. I think it might have been that I was just very confused by what was going on, and I just went,
There's actually a lot to go in that. Firstly, I'd like to say that there are a couple weak Daniel Craig Bonds.
Sure.
But he's not the weak part.
Sure.
Consistent. If there's one thing that's super consistent about that era, it's him. Okay. There have been a few writer strikes and such, which is one of the reasons why that Quantum of Solace isn't as strong.
I think I heard about that.
There's actually a great, like, 45-minute documentary with Bond and the two major producers. Okay. Where they're honest about Quantum. They're honest about the whole series in general, and it's really cool. Yeah. And Daniel Craig even talks about how that one just didn't hit the mark. Great, and physically, I mean, he takes a beating in these movies. Like, he's broken bones. Oh my goodness. He's been like taped together. They've had to shut down production because things have to heal. Yeah. I mean, it's...
So does he do all his own stunts and stuff, or is it just like the stunts that he does?
He does a good amount.
Okay.
This one, I think he does quite a few, but Quantum broke him so much that it literally has affected other Bond movies where, like, he's just, he's a little bit more nervous around doing his own stunts, which he still does, but I mean, even in No Time to Die, he had, issues on set because, like, he broke his ankle and just stuff like that.
My goodness. Yeah. Well, so if anyone was interested in the future acting as the next Bond,
it's
maybe
a physical part.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to do that. But what would you say? And then, like, I saw bits and pieces of Skyfall, but, like, I don't know. I think Quantum of Solace was so bad when I first watched it, and I don't even remember why I thought it was bad, really. It was a while ago that I saw this. But it was bad enough that I was just like, I really don't care
We could
about
have
James
a
Bond.
whole separate
you know?
podcast on how to fix Quantum of Solace.
I know, and maybe we will.
We
That'd be
should.
cool. Yeah.
Part two.
I'll have to watch it again and go. Watch me watch it and go, no, this is great.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, no, it's actually terrible.
Quantum
So,
has my favorite opening of all Bond.
yeah.
Just that opening car chase, I just think is so cool. It's the first Bond movie to be a direct sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got us good.
Very
parts.
cool. Very cool. What is it? So what would you say is your background for?
So I would say I remember the Daniel Craig Bonds coming out. I can remember seeing a lot of the Pierce Brosnan and Roger Moore ones on TV. They were always the ones on like TNT
Sure.
over the summer.
Yeah.
I would always watch bits and pieces.
Yeah.
They were obviously something my younger brother and I liked and my dad liked. So when like Skyfall came out,
Yeah.
we went to the theater to see it.
Let's
and
go.
it was awesome.
Yeah.
So I really had grown up with just seeing bits and pieces on TV.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the summer, I was able to buy the entire box set from Dr. No all the way through to Spectre on Blu-ray. And I
Wow.
watched them all.
Yeah.
And there were pieces where I was like, oh, so that's where this one was from. This
Yeah.
was from Moonraker. This was
Yeah.
from,
like the
Dino-
bits and
yeah.
pieces that you kind of remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know that I hadn't seen them all up until that point, but I knew that I had seen
Little bits.
good chunks of
Yeah.
pretty much each of them, honestly.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how would you say, being that that's your background, how would you say, before we get into all the details and stuff like that, this one, Casino Royale, compares to kind of Bond in general? Would you say that this is higher on the list? Is it maybe lower? I don't know.
I did my own ranking on Letterboxd of each Bond after I watched it. This is the highest rated.
Really? Wow.
I'm a huge fan of most of the Sean Connery ones.
Yeah.
And I know people like to have that as their default of, oh, he's the first, he's the best.
Yeah.
He's really good, but
Yeah.
Daniel Craig is
He's just
great. And it doesn't have anything to do with, oh, this movie was made in 1962 as opposed to Skyfall, which is 2012.
Sure.
A period of 50 years. Obviously,
yeah, like
things aren't going to hold up as well.
yeah, like action set pieces.
Yeah.
Are just gonna be like, oh,
Or camera
look at what they can do
movements,
now.
or-
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
In
Just
fact,
style of
a
cinematography.
few of the early Bond movies,
Yeah.
to add intensity,
Okay.
they would just speed up the film.
Really?
So it
just
obviously
looks
in the 60s you
rough.
could see this and you would be like, oh, this is fast paced.
Yeah.
But now it doesn't really
It doesn't
work
look very
as
good. Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I bet like just because of the advance of technology, even if they did the same technique,
Yeah.
it would probably just look better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that
And
makes sense.
So this has the best action, I think the
Yeah.
strongest story.
Let's go.
To me, I've found over watching 25 Bond movies
Yeah.
in a period of 2 months' time,
Yeah.
the best Bond movies are the ones where he's stripped of his gadgets.
Yeah.
They always have the best Bond girls who are helpful and not just damsels in distress.
Sure. Yeah.
Usually whichever iteration is usually pretty irritated with him and he's on the run and, those when he's stripped away from everything,
Yeah.
that's the best Bonds.
Okay. So those three criteria,
Yeah,
you'd say are like
those
that
what
makes the
I've
best
found.
Bonds. Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing like what the listeners think if they're like, "Whoa, yeah, that is the best Bond," and I didn't realize that was like the consistent through line that kind of is Bond at his best.
Well, and if you watch this documentary, you hear Daniel Craig talk about how they didn't want to give him all this stuff right away.
Yeah.
They wanted to build up.
Yeah.
You know,
Like have you focus on the character
yeah.
rather than
you
cool
don't
little
meet
gadgets and
Q
stuff.
or Moneypenny until Skyfall, which are major characters throughout the whole Bond
Yeah.
franchise.
Yeah.
And he gets a cool car, but he doesn't have
Like the gadgets in the car and stuff.
His
like
car,
that.
he doesn't flip up the gear shift, and there's a bunch of buttons that are going to have guns and missiles.
Johnny English style.
Exactly.
So I think that we can get into kind of the meat of the the thing. We're going to be going through almost every single thing in this movie. Kind of chronologically going, hey, we're at this point. We've seen it. So if you guys have, even if you have seen the movie, it may be good to pause, check it out again, because it's going to be very easy for you to follow along with us if you do that. But really, it's up to you guys. We can talk about the intro. I actually really like the intro. Not only because of how it's cut together, where you have the action getting into kind of more of a really chill piece, or like to describe what's going on. We've got some random dude just walking up into an office building. We don't really know what's going on. I think it's in Prague, in the Czech Republic. And he goes up to his office, and we get a shot that kind of shows that the camera is avoiding something right next to it. And then we see that that's Bond. And it's like, whoa, what's going on? We find out that this guy has been up to like selling secrets and whatever, and M, who's kind of the leader of MI6, which is the group that Bond is a part of, is not happy about that at all, and has kind of sent James to deal with this. And at the same time, the thing that's kind of intercut with this is James fighting, I guess, a person who is connected to this person in Prague. Like in a bathroom and whatever, and it's a really gritty fight. You know what I mean? It's not at all.
This whole opening sequence shot in black and white.
Yeah,
it looks awesome.
No, and I wanted to get to that because something that I think is really cool is not only is that whole scene in black and white, which shows kind of a time transition or like a time jump from this opening scene to when we get to everything else, but also the Columbia Pictures and MGM. Studios like intros that we'll always see at the beginning of movies, whether it's that or other companies, were also in black and white, and it kind of makes you go, "Is my DVD broken? What's going on? Like, what?" But I think that's a really cool stylistic thing. I really like it whenever a movie messes with those intros in some sort of way, like in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, where they have kind of like a chiptune version of I think it's not Universal. It doesn't matter. Maybe it is Universal.
I think it is.
But whenever they do that, I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. And we're pretty early on in not only this podcast, but just the podcast series in general. I think that as everybody gets to know me better, they're going to find out that I think the perception is going to be that I'm just a hater of all things, pretty much.
Yeah.
But...
all things in general.
All things in general. Not only just movies.
Yeah, not only movies or Bond.
It took so long for me to convince Jacob to come onto this podcast because he was like, I don't even like being around you.
We're just going to fight the whole time.
Exactly. No, but, and I don't want it to seem like if I don't like, or I don't want it to seem like it has to be this grand, amazing thing if I'm going to like it. I like even just this little thing that it's black and white.
Yeah.
I don't really have to have a reason for it. It's just like, it's different. It's cool.
And the
it's
fact
interesting,
that both scenes are black and white, but they're shot completely different.
Yeah.
You know, the fight is obviously more handheld. Yeah. Where the meeting, where the guy's trying to size Bond up, is very, it's, on a tripod. Yeah. It's, very... Yeah.
And it causes a lot of contrast in between the two things, where you're very calm while you're watching. You're like, whoa, this is kind of a, I don't know what's going to happen situation. Because right when the guy sits down after he sees Bond, he opens his drawer and you see a gun. Yeah. And that kind of primes you a little bit. But then suddenly, when he talks about, oh, you need 2 kills or whatever, then suddenly we have a dude busting through a bathroom door and
in a great fight scene.
Yeah, just you getting thrown around, and it's such a confined area, but they use it so well where I don't know of a whole lot more you could do in a bathroom. You know what I mean? We got drowning in a sink and smashing into a toilet or just different things, and I think it's really, really well done. And you're like, whoa!
I love that the guy in Prague is so disconnected that he grabs his gun and he doesn't realize that it's empty.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have the clip.
Yeah, and he doesn't even realize that. Bond just takes his hand and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've got your clip right here." Like,
it's not, hey, I have your bullets.
Yeah, I've got
it's
the whole
whole clip, all of the bullets. There's not one left in the chamber. There's nothing. I didn't even pick that up.
Bond's line is, "I know where you hide your gun."
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Whoa. No, and also, and we'll get to this later, but him like breaking into like M's penthouse and things like that. It's like, this is a really knowledgeable person.
Yeah.
This is a really skilled person. And it's cool that we get to see that not only in his fighting prowess, because we definitely see that throughout. Where while there are challenges, he's very much up to the challenge.
Yes.
But we also see like he's knowledgeable on the people he's going after.
Yeah.
And that's really fun to watch. I find that I really like characters who are clearly really smart. I found that as kind of a pattern in some, like my favorite characters are either really smart or really stylish. It's those two things that are that really appeal to me. And Bond kind of has both.
Yeah.
So there you go. And he's also, Bond is like a smooth talker. And we get to see that, I think, for the first
Very
time
confident.
here. Yeah. Because I remember at the end of this scene, if there's nothing else for this, the guy in Prague is like, oh, well, like he figures out that his contact or whatever has been killed by Bond. Mm-hmm. And he goes, oh, well, you know, the second kill is always, and then Bond shoots him.
Just shoots him dead.
Yeah.
Just
and you don't
right
expect
on.
it because you're not seeing it or anything, but he's just gone. And Bond's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly, considerably. And you can kind of infer that it's like, it's a lot easier. And it's just like, he just killed somebody.
Yeah.
And he's just so, not necessarily even cold about it, but just like almost charismatic about that. You know what I mean?
Yes, this is my job. This is what I've been sent here.
Yeah.
You can't talk your way out of it.
Yeah. And we kind of get to see, I think that idea is played with a bit through the movie. When we get to like the Bond girl for this and things like that, they kind of talk about that some, about like, hey, how can you kill and like be so fine with it and defenses and things like that, but we'll get into it. But that then leads right into, the way that it actually ends is we actually get to see the first
gun barrel.
But we see the second kill before the first, because we think that the first guy dies by drowning in the sink. Yeah.
But then he gets up and Bond shoots him. Yeah.
And I don't know a whole lot about Bond, but isn't that generally how, like a staple in the intro, that like Bond will shoot towards the screen and you'll see kind of like the inside of a gun barrel?
This is the most creative way.
Okay.
Typically, yes, I think there's a couple of Bond movies where he doesn't do it until the end.
Okay.
But yeah, this is the most creative way of, you actually don't see him do this first kill, which we see second.
Yeah.
But then the gun barrel sequence happens, and you go okay,
right into it.
I'm sitting in a James Bond movie.
Yeah. And the thing that we go right into after the intro is the Bond song.
Yes.
And that's a really big thing. And
it's very, very important.
Yeah.
I used to, as a kid, if I had these on DVD or if they were recorded on TV, I would always skip the songs.
Really?
Just because just because they were always so long.
Yeah,
and
that's
I was
true.
Like, I don't care about it. Like, let's get to the killing. Let's get to the action.
Exactly.
But this song by Chris Cornell is probably one of my favorite Bond songs.
Yeah. It's really good.
And the opening title sequence is just
it's so good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Usually the good opening title sequences tell a story within.
Yeah. Does this one?
A little bit.
Because I didn't notice, but I wasn't paying attention. I was just jamming.
Not as much as the others.
Yeah. Okay.
But the song is just
it's really
just
good.
Great.
It's really good.
It's great.
Okay.
I should point out that one of the things that ages a Bond movie is who does the song.
Really?
Like Adele did Skyfall.
Yeah.
And clearly that was the time where she was really, I know she just had a new album out.
Yeah.
But this is at the height of her.
Definitely.
You know, Billie Eilish did the newest one.
Really? I didn't know that. That's
cool. And obviously she and her brother are
like
very,
really big,
very new.
Yeah.
Madonna did a song, Duran.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
You have Paul McCartney did Live and Let Die back in '73, so it's
a
little after his time ended with the Beatles.
Sure.
So it's, whoever's the most popular at the time.
That's cool. Yeah. That kind of makes me sad a little bit. There are like 3 things that I want to hit that just have to relate to the Bond song.
Okay.
Or actually, maybe 4. So this is going to be long. But the first one is that I actually went through a phase where I listened almost exclusively to Bond songs. It was like that.
I'm always looking them up on Spotify.
Yeah, that, like, Foster the People, because they had just come out with, like, Supermodel, I think, at the time. I think their second album. And maybe, like, a couple other things, but it was just that, and it was so good. I didn't even know what movies they were to or anything. Just the song itself was really good. So, yeah, definitely check these out, even if you're, like, this genre doesn't really appeal to you. Even just the music is really good.
2 of the best Bond songs are definitely from Duran Duran and Aha.
Oh, really?
So it's whatever the last Roger Moore one. That's the one Duran Duran did. And then Aha did Living Daylights, which was the first Timothy. I forget his name.
That's all right.
I'll remember it here.
Yeah. If you get it, you can just blurt it out. You just be like, Jordy, shut up. All right. It's my turn. But I have a background in like card magic and stuff like that may come up in other episodes. And while there's only like a tangential thread in between
Timothy Dalton.
Dalton. Okay, I was like, Timothy Dalton. That's rough.
Imagine.
Well, yeah. Well, look, some people have worse names than that. But what is it? Oh, while there's only like a tangential thread in between card magic and like casino stuff, you know what I mean, gambling and things like that. It was solid enough that I kind of tiptoed across that line, and I really like the aesthetic of casinos. I'm not super interested in gambling, but just what things look like. Everything there just looks really cool. So I like seeing that in this intro, and also once we actually get to the game, I'm like, whoa, this looks so cool.
Yeah, it's a game of like have to know how to play.
Yeah.
You know,
it's chance, luck, psychology. It's really interesting stuff. Like, the aesthetic is really cool, and so is, like, the mind game in it. You know what I mean? Because you don't get that with, like, slots or, like, just other ones. Poker is, like, kind of where it's at.
Yeah.
You know? It's not just, the cards I get, but how you play them. Yeah. And kind of how you're playing
other people.
Exactly, yeah. I think the fact that we both said that's probably a line in the movie that we're like, wow, we came up with this. Aren't we, like, so smart? I'm trying to think. I think there are 2 other things that I want to... I'm also a really big fan of the Metal Gear series. And I'm not meaning to get, like, super into this, but everybody who knows about Metal Gear knows where I'm going with this. In Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, it is very clearly inspired by Bond.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like after this, I'll probably play you that song, and you're gonna go, "Wow, this isn't a Bond movie." Yeah, exactly. So it's funny when I got to that point, I was like, "Whoa, this is like James Bond." And while I'm not the biggest fan of James Bond, I really liked seeing kind of that cross-culture reference, you know what I mean? And I think that also gets to the point that you were saying way earlier about how Bond is like this worldwide thing, because Metal Gear is made in Japan, you know what I mean? So Hideo Kojima, the guy who makes that, he was so impressed by this that I was like, I gotta have something, you know what I mean? That's like that. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is I have had a bee in my bonnet about the fact that Lana Del Rey has not done a Bond song yet. I really feel like she could.
I think she would do a really good one. I'm not a Billie Eilish kind of a person, so I was kind of irritated when I found out that she would do it, because it's such a special thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, the Bond song being announced is like, what's his car gonna look like?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
there are all
what's
these
the
things.
story?
Yeah.
What's the and I was like,
yeah.
And I mean, I won't get into what I think of her song.
All right, sounds good. Maybe we'll save that for another time. But yeah, you saying that it has to be like people at the height of their career.
Yeah.
I really like Lana Del Rey even now. There are some dicey things if you get in, like, you can get dicey with her. And I don't want to deny that. But I don't think that she's at the height of her career. And I think because of certain dicey things and kind of a more critical view on her, if that's the case, what you're saying, and it makes sense that it would be, then I don't think we're getting one. But I am still going to have a bee in my bonnet, all right? We got to have a Lana Del Rey Bond song. It has to happen. Get it done.
It really, and I don't know what makes the producers choose who's doing the song next. Obviously, it's more than just popularity. They have to think that they're good.
Sure, of course. Well, but I don't think that like there's any contention for Lana Del Rey for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And especially because I feel like...
But I think it's also a generational thing. Like, obviously, it's what's popular now, but what do people like?
Yeah.
I mean, Billie Eilish, whether I like her or not.
Yeah.
I mean, there are tons of people my age and younger who this is the audience we know we need for this movie to make money.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense. It reminds me a little bit of how they had like 21 Pilots do a song for Suicide Squad. You know, it wasn't in the movie, but it was just like, what's hot right now? Yeah. What's like the hottest stuff? Yeah. And let's just get it into our movie any way we can. So so it makes sense. But it's a little sad. But I think that's about it for the Bond song. Right after the Bond song, we get the intro for the villain. We've kind of had the intro for Bond. Yeah. We see him become the 007. We didn't mention that, but this is the scene where he gets 007 status, the license to kill. And then right after the Bond song, we get to see who the villain is, and that is Le Chiffre.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to mention here for this?
I think we get the best sort of bait and switch ever because his intro is really cool.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm this guy, you know, you want me to handle your money.
Yeah.
And the breakdown of that character throughout the movie, which we'll get into, is fantastic.
Okay.
The fact that he's got a good poker face for life in general and the people he deals with.
Yeah.
But
and also for poker.
Yeah, but boy, oh boy, does...
is he not really the guy in control and stuff?
Yeah, he's definitely small fish. Yeah. And Mads Mikkelsen is just...
Yeah, and we'll get to casting and acting. I agree with that, but we can get into like why we both feel that way. I have a little bit of a different opinion here.
Okay.
And I think that as we get through this, this will maybe expand a little bit. I think there are certain people who really like subversion in movies, and I don't know if I'm one of those people. I'm really selective about what I go, yeah, that's a good subversion, and this is maybe not so good. And I don't think that I've developed this idea a whole lot, but I think them presenting Mads Mikkelsen's character Le Chiffre as like the guy, and then he's like kind of not. But then the guy, which we'll get to way later, is also kind of not, because he's just kind of there for a few things. I don't know. It makes it so I feel like the villain is, the villain in quotes, like whether the person or whatever is just kind of cut out at the knees to me.
I feel like if you were to see every Daniel Craig Bond movie, you would appreciate it a little more.
Okay.
Because one of the problems with Quantum of Solace is the villain. Okay. Now, if you're a Bond fan and you've seen all the Bond movies, you know about the villainous organization Spectre.
Sure.
And
I don't, to be clear.
In the original movies with Sean Connery, we get to meet the villains, but we know that Spectre's behind it. We don't know what Spectre is just yet. Yeah. And they're just this huge group, so they sort of flip it on its head where Le Chiffre is a bad guy. We don't know that he's a part of a group, really, for a few movies. We just think
I was going to say, like, we don't get that really by the end of the movie.
You don't realize what threat he opposes until later on. Okay. Which is really the main issue with the villain in Quantum of Solace, because they wanted Spectre to be this villainous group, but they didn't have the rights to...
Really? I didn't know that.
Spectre. Yeah. I don't know how like those differed from the books or anything like that.
Sure.
Which, I mean, I get, and that stinks that they didn't, but obviously they're trying to, like, we don't get Q or Moneypenny in this movie right away. Yeah. Which I can kind of respect that. Well, we don't really know who the main real villain is. Sure. Because even from the beginning, they wanted the Daniel Craig movies to have an interwoven sort of story.
Sure. So it's like the idea that if you watch Casino Royale, while there's a lot that can be appreciated,
it's a big gamble because there was so much hatred towards Daniel Craig getting cast that
Really?
if
Again,
this
we'll
movie
get into
doesn't
that,
make enough money, then they kind of have to get rid of this. Like, the story won't really matter.
Yeah. But what I was saying earlier was this kind of works and you can tell me if this is wrong, that while there's a lot to appreciate about Casino Royale by itself, there are certain things that you can't really appreciate, like maybe how Le Chiffre is used, I suppose, in this movie, unless you have the context of the bigger picture. Is that what you're saying?
A little bit, but I also like that this movie came out in 2006. So I feel like government organizations aren't just one main villain.
Sure. And
there is always the person on top, whether they're working together or taking over or what's happening. So I feel like that maybe speaks a little bit to politics and world governments in general. Yeah,
no, and I think with that understanding, I can be more forgiving of this. I didn't have that understanding. I didn't know that any of this stuff, besides maybe stuff with the Bond girl, was at all related to things in the future. So I'm seeing this as just a one-off and going, as a one-off, this is kind of rough. You know what I mean? We get pretty much everybody eliminated by the end of the movie, who is an antagonistic force, at least that we get to see in this movie. And none of them, like, Le Chiffre is the one who has, like, the most personality, and yet then he, like I said, gets cut out at the knees, and we'll get to that way later. But that makes a lot more sense. And I would be interested in watching kind of all of the Daniel Craig movies and then going back and going, okay, does that kind of resolve my issues? Do I feel that there are issues still? But I'm fine with kind of going, I can't really speak to that because of that. So we get the villain intro, we get the bait and switch, and we get a couple of things, I guess, that maybe this is me being super particular. And when I say this, if you just say, like you're looking at this way too much, even for you, then I'm fine with that. But we see a couple of things from this guy, Le Chiffre. Like he, I guess, has asthma. He has an inhaler. And he also bleeds from one of his eyes. Like there's a tear duct issue or something like that. And while I think that the whole like scratch on his eye and like bleeding blood and things like that is cool aesthetically. And it works for like, oh, look, he's like the bad character. The way that like Anakin Skywalker has like a scratch on his eye and things like that, you know? And it works like that. I don't think that either of these things are really used. Wait, I just realized I'm wrong. Because he uses the inhaler and then they put like the tracker or whatever in the inhaler. So maybe that's just like...
Well, not only that
my own
is...
point.
I forget specifically what scene, but blood does come down and he dabs it and he notices somebody else looking at it. He's like, don't worry, it's an old wound or, you know.
Yeah, it's just like a malfunction of the tear duct, not like anything.
Oh my goodness, this guy like literally like...
Cries blood.
Yeah, cries blood. Like, that would freak me out.
No, I agree. I guess my thing was more with the inhaler because to me that gets into Chekhov's gun territory. Whenever you introduce something, it has to mean something. But then I love how I'm presenting that issue and then I'm like, wait a second, the tracker. So never mind. Well, there we go. For anyone else who had that issue, though I think I'm in the stark minority, then there we go. No more issue. This is kind of indicative of how I debate myself all the time. I'm just like, wait, there's no problem here. Well, all right. From there, if there's nothing else, then we get to, do you know where this is going on? Where this scene is? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember
exactly. I think we're like somewhere in Africa. Yeah. And Bond and I guess a partner of his are trying to track down this bomb maker. Who apparently is named, I think, Molaka. Yes. But I don't think... We're probably going to call him Bomb Maker throughout our discussion of him. Cause
they probably gave him that name so that, like, if the camera sees, like, some official, like, dossier of him, he's got a name. He's not just Bomb Maker. Like, that's not his name. Like,
and I don't know how much they really want the word bomb on set. You know what I mean? Then we go, oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, the Bomb Maker.
Exactly. Yeah.
But,
who let this to down?
So... that's one of our first really good action sequences.
That's true. Well, it leads to it, yeah.
And I guess I should say this Do you want me to do the fun fact now?
Sure. But I do want to just talk very briefly about how we get from we're in Africa to the action sequence. Do you want me to do that now?
That's fine.
Okay. And the reason I want to bring this up is because earlier I was saying that we see that Bond is a very knowledgeable and kind of expert person in what we're doing. And actually, we'll get into that because I have a question for you. But in a second, like before we get to the next section, I have a question. So just remind me if I forget. But we get to see Bond's expertise as compared to one of his coworkers, because his coworker is like touching
his ear,
touching his ear,
earbud in,
exactly.
And Bond's like, "Hey, stop touching your
exactly.
ear. You're gonna give this away."
Yeah,
and that's exactly how this whole sequence starts.
Because the bomb maker then looks at the guy, and the partner is looking right at the bomb maker, and the bomb maker, I think he got like a text just then, so it kind of all works out. He's getting a little bit more nervous. He looks around, he sees someone just staring at him with his finger in his ear,
white
and
guy
he's like,
staring at him
exactly.
So clearly,
it's like and that kind of tips him off, and that's what really starts this whole scene. You know what I mean? And also we get to see another thing of like Bond being the professional rather than this other dude, because this dude pulls out a gun like immediately, and they're in like a crowd of people because they're at like an animal fighting ring. It's like a mongoose or something versus a king cobra, I think. And this dude just goes, "Hey, I'm gonna take out a gun in this crowd of people. I'm definitely, if I'm gonna shoot this dude, I'm only gonna shoot this dude, and there's gonna be no collateral damage apparently." But then we get to something that we're going to return to, like the question that I had for you. Bond tells his partner to put the gun away, which I think would be good advice just in general for the situation that they're in. Yeah.
Now, it should be pointed out that there are some animal fights, so these aren't the most upstanding people. These are
that doesn't mean they should get shot.
These are all seedy
individuals. Look.
These two groups of people are not the only ones with guns. That should be a little...
Yeah. But we learn that Bond is trying to apprehend this bomb maker alive for like questioning and things like that. But when the bomb maker sees what is going on, he hightails it out of there as quick as possible. Gunshot goes off. The whole place is in chaos, and James now has to find this bomb maker, who looks pretty distinctive because apparently he wasn't always an expert at his job, and he kind of had something blow up in his face.
There's always going to be some sort of accident if you're... It doesn't matter how good you are at making bombs. There's always going to be some sort of miscalculation.
And there you go. But that's when the chase starts. And do you want to do your fun fact before we get into... Okay. Perfect.
So, if you've seen this movie, you know how good the parkour chase is.
Yeah, I was going to just talk about the parkour.
The bomb maker is the guy who created parkour.
No way. He's the guy. Oh my goodness! He is the guy who
created parkour.
That's crazy.
Which it's not some actor or some stuntman who's very physical and trained.
And who like learned it.
Knows now. Obviously, I'm sure he used like wires on set. You're not just gonna have some guy like
jumping off of cranes.
There's a lot of insurance issues there. But
especially with the guy who created parkour, we want to make sure he can maybe be in a couple other movies, train some Padawans, and then he can do whatever he wants.
Created parkour.
That's amazing.
Yep.
It was funny because you were saying, "Oh, I got this little fun fact for tomorrow," and I was thinking, "Okay,
it better be good."
Well, I was just thinking, like, it's just not going to be. I don't know, but wow, that's really cool.
Yep.
And he's really good at it because I was thinking this was around. Maybe I have my timing wrong then, because something I had in my notes was like parkour is very in this year. Apparently.
Yeah.
But I remember like when I was younger and when I had watched this, I guess a little bit after, clearly, parkour was just really big. Wall jumping and just all
climbing
this,
up.
Yeah, exactly. All this stuff. No longer was climbing dedicated to like mountains and trees. You could do it in the urban environment, and that was really cool. And it's a really fun thing to watch because of that. And we're probably going to say this over and over, but this is something that causes this action scene to be very different from the others. We get the bathroom, which is the first action scene, and that is in a very confined area, really utilizing everything about the environment to explore different things. It's not just them punching, it's not just them kicking, shooting, things like that. It's them using the environment, and I think that's really cool. But with this, we get to see a difference between Bond and this guy. Because we get to see him jumping and bouncing off of all these things.
And we still get to see all these different parts of the environment used.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
in such a different way.
Yeah.
Like,
because what happens is, and I don't know if we already said this, but the Malacca, or the bomb maker, actually runs into a construction site because he's thinking, hey, I'm going to be able to lose him here. I kind of have the upper hand in being able to navigate pretty much any sort of urban environment that I can get into. So I think that's why he does it. And it could be just that it was right there. I don't know. Because we don't explicitly hear him, like, his thoughts going, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to win.
What's Bond's entrance into this scene? Using a piece of construction equipment.
Yeah.
You know, a bulldozer, and he just comes busting through. Like,
yeah. And that's actually, that gets to a point that I wanted to make, which is, I really think that it's cool that we get to see the varied movement styles of the two.
Yeah.
Because the bomb maker is clearly physically skilled, and Bond is, he's pretty good too, not at the same level. Yeah. But we get to see that Bond, what he lacks in parkour ability, because he's not the creator of parkour, he makes up for in smarts, where he uses his environment, he uses the technology around, and stuff like that.
I think there are two great instances in this fight. The one is the bomb maker jumps through this tiny window, and what's Bond do? He runs right through it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and then when they're on the crane, the bomb maker, you know, they both get to the top. He tries to shoot Bond. He throws his gun at Bond, and Bond catches it and throws it back.
Yeah, we get to see that they are very comparable. Yeah. This is a very evenly, a very even match, so to speak. But we also do get to see how they're different. These aren't just like copies of each other going. Like,
it's like, okay, your strength was easily getting up here. I'm up here now. Now you did this thing. Now I know how to counter that.
Exactly. No, and it's really cool. But that's my first point of contention. With this movie. But the question that I had that I wanted to ask, or that I was mentioning earlier, is what would you say is the time between the black and white scene from the beginning and here? Because I don't know, for the black and white scene, like I mentioned earlier, this is when he first gets the 00 status. This is like the beginning of Bond as we know him. The shaken not stirred guy, the whatever, right? But then there's clearly some space between that and then. And I don't know if this is him still green, or if this is a haggard old Bond. I don't.
No, so the great thing about Daniel Craig is we see him age as Bond. Yeah. And he's new. Okay. But when you become a 00, it's not... you clearly have some experience. It's not some 9-month program where you know in 9 months you're going to be able to do all this stuff. Yeah. It takes training because the character of Bond, he's known as Commander Bond. Okay. It's because...
I've never heard that. That's pretty cool.
In the books and in the sort of mythology of Bond, he's high ranking in the British Navy. Okay. So he knows how to do stuff, and obviously I would kind of put it to a Navy SEAL, or you know, it's not something that everybody can do. Yeah.
So it's a very selective program.
Very, and you have to be very physical. Yeah. And so I feel like what we saw in the beginning of the movie in the black and white scenes to now is probably not that long.
Okay. And the reason that I ask that is because my point of contention is we hear directly from Bond that his goal is to have the bomb maker alive so that he can question him. And we'll see if that happens by the end. But whatever the result is by the end of this really cool action scene, there's a point where they both are climbing up to the tallest crane in the construction site. And it's like, whoa, what is going to happen here? The bomb maker has used his gun at several points to shoot some just kind of innocent construction workers and things like that. And we get that kind of works to amplify hey, this is the bad guy, Bond is the good guy type of thing. And what that results in is when they get to the top of the crane, he pulls out his gun and he's going to shoot Bond. There's no bullets. Yeah. He throws his gun at Bond, And then Bond, like you said, Bond catches it, throws it back. And when he throws it back, this bomb maker doesn't just like catch it and, they don't just play like hot potato with his gun. The bomb maker actually kind of like falters a little bit and almost falls off of the crane. And he saves himself from falling off the crane. If it is Bond's goal to have this guy alive, why would he do that when it could lead to his very certain death?
I feel like in this time, it's very much so I'm fighting against my life. So there is sort of this like, yes, I want to save you, but not at the expense of you for whatever reason killing me.
Sure.
Because, yes, it is. Maybe Bond didn't expect him to fall that way.
Sure.
I mean, you're in this, high crane, so your mind is obviously on a bunch of different things.
Sure.
Like, hey, I don't want to fall off myself.
Yeah, definitely.
So I feel like it was just enough for Bond to have a reaction that way he could move on to the next step.
Sure.
Not necessarily now if the guy fell, it would have been an oh crap moment because
again,
that's another thing of the Daniel Craig Bonds. M is constantly getting mad at him because it's like, you killed this guy, we needed him.
Yeah. And that we'll get to at least one other instance of M being like, why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing what you're doing? This is resulting in really bad stuff. But I don't know, like that made me, I feel like I would be more forgiving of that if I understood like, oh, he's like really new at his job. He doesn't really know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But what you were saying makes sense on like, hey, you kind of have to be really good to be at the level that Bond is. It just seems like a really bad decision in that moment. And unless we're going to say like, hey, Bond just under pressure sometimes makes bad choices.
I think a lot of it was an aesthetic thing.
Okay. And it looks really cool.
It's just one of those like, this is a very quick and smart Bond, as we see really many instances all throughout this movie.
Yeah.
You throw a gun, he's not just going to let it hit him, he's not going to let it fall. He's going to catch it and he's going to literally throw it back at you. Sure.
I think that we can get the same like, whoa, he's really skilled by having him catch it and then just throw it off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where he's kind of trying to
I think it's also a little bit of a comedic beat because, like, you use a gun to shoot. The fact that somebody literally just threw a gun at you.
Yeah.
And
have you seen the first Spy Kids?
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of when Carmen and Junie they're the people who like invade the safe house and they realize, oh, these people are evil, and they grab some things and they point it at them like they're guns.
Oh yeah, and they just
and they're like, the lady's like, you don't even know what that is. And Carmen looks at it and she's like, I know it's heavy. And then she throws it. That reminds me a lot about that. And I think it works as Bond is skilled to the point where he can catch it. And I think it works as comedy to the point where they're throwing a gun.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you see that all the time.
Yeah.
I think more often when there are no bullets, you'll use it as like a melee weapon. You know what I mean? Kind of almost like brass knuckles. You know what I mean?
Like you're
pistol
gonna hit
whip
somebody
and,
with it. Yeah.
But rarely do you throw a gun.
Well, and it just shows like Bond is physically fit enough to catch it.
Yeah.
But this guy like clearly didn't see it coming that it was going to be thrown back at him.
So
you think it's like this really cool move, but it's like, oh wow, this other guy's already like thought about the different steps of what could happen.
Yeah. So I think it also works for showing Bond is skilled enough to catch it. This other guy is not.
Mm-hmm.
And while I accept all three of these things,
but he's going to parkour.
I don't think that matters when you're on the top of a crane.
Yeah, no.
And you have to like catch yourself or else you're going to die. That's my issue. That while I agree with all three of those reasons for why it can be appreciated, if it is Bond's goal to keep him alive, and that's going to come up again in this scene.
Maybe he didn't realize that the consequences. Maybe he was just like,
It was just like
him falling is worst case scenario.
Yeah, him acting was like going quicker than him thinking about his goal. And like, I can believe that. Yeah. And I don't want to harp too much on this, but that's kind of where I have the issue. And I especially don't want to harp too much on this because we're going to be returning pretty much to this exact same point later on in the scene. But after that happens, Bombmaker saves himself, and they kind of like jump off, rip that Bombmaker's knees. I don't care who you are. That looks like it hurts.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care if you roll. Those seem like pretty big heights to jump off of. But,
Oh, yeah, that would...
You know what I mean?
But
like
that just shows the versatility of, like...
Sure.
I have trained for this, and it's not an easy training.
Yeah,
and,
no, I agree. I
I
completely agree.
So,
it makes both of them skilled. I'm saying, like,
so
of the movie.
When he jumps, I love that there are just times in this movie where he literally just shakes it off. It's like, okay, I need to keep going.
Yeah. You're saying Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bond's like,
but No, and I also do think it's cool that, again, I'm kind of still talking about the varied movements, which is the bomb maker jumps down and Wall, like, rip his knees still because, wow. And his ankles and just everything. He just rolls out and keeps on going. And when Bond tries to do the same thing, he cannot. You know what I mean? He like slams into like a metal sheet or something like that, and he kind of rolls off. And like you said, he shakes it off, and he's like, "I just got to keep on going." You know what I mean? Even with the pain that I'm feeling, there's still the goal. There's still the mission. I have to keep on moving towards that.
Yeah, I can't go back to headquarters and be like, I hurt my knees. That's not going to be a good enough excuse.
They'll have to give him those Dark Knight Rises knee braces, you know what I'm saying? And then it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
But they keep on going, and I don't remember, it might have just been that causes the bomb maker to think, okay, I've kind of escaped. I'm going to keep on running, and I'm going to go to like the embassy that's right here. But I'm good, you know what I mean? Because you can't do that in an embassy. I don't really know embassy rules, but I think that's not a thing. Like refugees and stuff, they'll like run there and then you can't do anything. You know what I mean? Bond clearly doesn't care because he chases the guy down and he goes there and
he shoots
just
that place up.
Yeah. No, and so did, like, for a place that is supposed to be as peaceful as it is, like when he goes in and he like bonks that one dude against like the like bust or whatever that's there, afterwards when he takes the bomb maker and he's trying to leave, the guy sets off an alarm and all these soldiers come out of nowhere with all sorts of guns and they're busting that place up. If there's anyone else in that embassy, I don't know how they got out. Yeah. If we're honest. Like, if someone was in the bathroom or something, they're dead. Yeah. Because there are just so many just bullets flying. But this eventually leads... actually, one thing I want to mention here is I think it's cool that we see Bond actively trying to be non-lethal. Yeah. Right? Because there's a point where he has at least 2 or 3 soldiers there with like automatic rifles, I think.
It's not until everyone comes up and he and the bomb maker are outside.
But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But what I'm saying is that we see that he has a gun on them and he uses it, but he uses it to shoot like a water pipe. So it's spraying them and whatever and distracting them. They then like unload, but it's not like aimed at all.
I guess it's enough to be like, I'm probably going to run out of bullets. Yeah. So what's my best way to get these people removed from my path?
Yeah. And I think it also shows that like he's not just trying to kill innocent people. Yeah. I think he's fine with killing villains. Like he has the license to kill. He can do
these military guys are specifically protecting that embassy.
Yeah. So these aren't the bad guys. I'm just trying to get out. Yeah. And eventually we see Bond grab the bomb maker, throw him out of the window. He then jumps out, and when he lands on the ground, he's kind of like trying to gain his bearings once more. But as he's doing that, all of these soldiers come out of the woodwork, and so does the guy who he just slammed his like head on the bust, who seems like the leader of the place there, even though like no lines are really exchanged. And this I thought was, for comedy reasons, I think it's great. For like smarticles reasons, I think it's great, but I still have a problem with it.
Okay, what's that?
But just to describe what happens, he is clearly way outnumbered, and he kind of looks around at his environment. And there are actually a couple things here that kind of remind me of the Robert Downey Sherlock Holmes, where it's kind of like using the environment in a really creative way. And later on, when he talks to the Bond girl, and they kind of have like I don't think it's like inferences about each other, but just kind of guessing things based off of little traits. I thought, but we'll get to that. But he looks around and he drops the gun, and that makes the audience and also the people in that situation go, "Oh, okay." Yeah. He surrendered, what's going to happen? Like, they're going to take him in, and MI6 is going to have to bail him out. But that doesn't happen because I don't remember where he got that gun, but I don't think it was his originally. He, like, grabbed it from somewhere. But as a 00, we clearly know he has a gun. But we forget that in that moment. But right after he drops the gun and everything seems to be cooling down, he then pulls out his gun, shoots the bomb maker, kills him, and then uses a second bullet to blow up this like canister that we as the audience and Bond saw just like a second ago. It blows the whole place up, but seemingly in a non-lethal way, where we get to see right after that some soldiers get up and the main guy, the main like leader, gets up and things like that. So that kind of implies to us, the audience, that everyone is fine. Yeah. All the innocents are fine.
It was enough to distract people for him to get away.
Yeah, because then we see, in a sense, a POV shot from the leader, and we see that like the fence behind Bond is now down and he is gone.
Yeah.
The issue that I have here, because like I said, in a skill way this kind of works, and in a comedic way this kind of works, with like, oh, there is a gun, whoa. The way that I don't think it works is that if everyone gets stunned by this explosion to the point where they're kind of out of it, like all of them for a little bit.
Why isn't he?
Well, not even that. Really? Not even that. It is, which I didn't even think of that. Maybe that is an issue. Maybe it's a bigger issue than what I'm going to say. You're not helping your case. Your media's public defense, all right? But the issue that I have here is, why doesn't he then just grab the bomb maker and take him with him? In that moment,
I think he realizes that is just too much baggage.
Okay. Like he's not going to be able to move quick enough.
Not only that, I don't know how, because a lot of times, not just in Bond movies in general, but whatever spy you're watching in whatever government, this is a top secret thing.
Sure.
So we don't want other governments knowing about it. So he grabs the phone. Which I think at this point he's just hoping has some sort of evidence. He does.
Sure.
I don't think.
And that's a gamble.
Yeah. So I think he's thinking, man, this guy is going to be really difficult. You know, getting back to whatever means of transportation he's going to get out of there.
Sure.
And then back to MI6.
Sure.
So I think he just realizes that it's a bit of a lost cause.
Sure.
Hopefully I can get as much information as I can.
Yeah. The thing with that, though, is did James Bond realize just then? Did MI6 not realize until then? Like, what was the plan? Because if the plan was to get him alive,
the plan was to get him alive, but the plan was never to get him alive at the animal fight thing.
Okay. It was just to follow him to somewhere where they could just like bag him and bring him somewhere.
But then the other guy kind of screwed that up by touching his ear and looking down and not all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the idea would have been to follow him, incapacitate him in some way, and then, question him.
So, and maybe this will clear this up. Besides the fact that, like, no matter what, there's still a big gamble with him going, hopefully there's enough information.
Yeah.
On this phone or something in his bag,
because M isn't happy about this whole situation because Bond is seen by embassy cameras.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say when you were mentioning like he doesn't want people to know. I'm like, look.
So I mean, it's clearly taken turns that Bond
doesn't want it to.
Yeah.
Would you say then that like through this scene, Bond is trying to figure out, can I still get him back alive?
Yeah.
But that's when he decides I can't.
Yeah.
And
I think
only way that I don't get captured.
Yeah. I think
is this.
Him throwing him out the window was like, maybe we still can. Just that last shred of hope. But then when he sees everybody else, he goes, okay, well, clearly this isn't working out the way that I want it to.
Yeah. I have to just take this guy out and disappear.
Because he knows, and you end up seeing in other Bond movies, if Bond gets captured, it's not like MI6 is going to go, oh no, we need to save him.
Yeah.
MI6s, as Bond says, don't have a long life expectancy.
Double O's.
Yeah.
007s. He said MI6s.
Or a lot of, 007s. So,
did I say 006?
Well, any 00, really.
Yeah.
So he probably just wants to get out of there because he knows that he's not going to be sought after as quickly as
as maybe some other.
Else.
Yeah. That makes sense. So it goes at this point. It's a lost cause type of a thing. Okay. And I guess it's worth it to mention that I guess I can forgive Bond gambling the way he does with with getting that information. So that's, since the movie's called Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Thank you. But moving on from there, we see that Bond disappears. He's kind of in the foliage, maybe like just right outside of the fence or something like that. But he's free. And he somehow grabbed the guy's backpack. I didn't watch close enough to know if that's an issue at all.
So I think when he pushes the bomb maker, that's when he slips the backpack off, or it falls close enough to him that when the thing explodes, he can grab it and go.
Yeah. Okay. And like I wasn't gonna make an issue out of it. Like I said, I didn't watch close enough to go. But that's cool to know. But he has the bag. He opens it up. He finds a phone.
He finds a bomb.
Oh, that's true. He finds a bomb, and he's like, "I'm just gonna put this over here."
Yeah.
What else is there?
Yeah.
And he grabs his phone, which Bond saw earlier. He got a text, and that's kind of what led to all of this. And it says ellipsis, which I guess is like a code word or something like that. I don't think we ever find out like what that's all about. It's just a word. Oh wait, no, because it's the password later on in the airport.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why the bomb maker would need that, because I don't think it didn't really seem like.
It might. I think a lot of it's just like a code. Mm-hmm.
So it means something, but it's also conveniently the passcode.
Yeah, okay. I think it's just enough for us to realize it's a thread.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's too much to have some other random thing, and what's this? I think it's just to connect the story a little bit.
Sure. And I'm fine with that. I'm not saying...
Just so we realize...
There's no background to ellipsis. That's not like a person who like...
Just so we realize, okay, the bomb maker is connected to this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's connected
to...
That
makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. After that... We then get to Le Chiffre's first game.
Yes.
We get like a shot of like a woman coming out of the ocean. I think it's the ocean. And like climbing onto a yacht. We see the yacht. We then go into the yacht. And we see that he is playing with like a couple other people. And we've seen so far, I think I didn't even realize this when I was watching it. Or when we put like the outline for what we were going to talk about together. But we get to see an intro for Bond, and then we get to see an intro for the villain. We get to see Bond is skilled, and now we get to see Le Chiffre is skilled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also, like, kind of evil. But we get to see them play, and it's funny, because I've seen people play dominoes this way, where they'll, like, know what you have in your hand, or know, like, the probability of what you have in your hand, depending on, like, the kind of dominoes you play. But... we get to see this guy do it too, where he goes, well, I have this, and you have like a 17.4 chance of having the only hand that's better than this in this case. So you don't have it. So you can just give me all your money now. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, and not only that, is like, this is sort of like a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he's like playing a game with them.
Yeah.
But they're also sort of like on the same villainous team, if you will.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Because
I think we see, I don't remember what the other guy looked like who he's saying the probability thing to, but we see like an older Asian lady there, who I think we see her at the game. I think it's the same actress.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
They're sort of, I think they're all sort of a part
like
of the same organization.
Like, okay.
Which leads me to my fun fact about her.
All right, very cool. Let's go.
She plays a Bond girl.
Really?
In the fifth Bond movie, which is You Only Live Twice.
An accurate statement, if ever there was one.
I believe, spoiler alert, the movie's been out for 55 years. Mm-hmm. She dies in the movie.
Oh, and then she's back because you only lived twice.
So then
Boom.
and then and then
was that not the point you were making?
No, just the fact that she's in another Bond movie, and here 39 years later,
that's really cool.
They have her. I mean, it's. I only realize it because I may have.
Because you watched them so like close together.
Stumbled upon it or something like that, but that's just a fun like.
Yeah, that is really
Easter
cool.
egg.
But I think she's the same lady at the game, like I said.
Which I guess it would make sense in their big game, because we're obviously getting there.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be, if you are gambling so much on something, you probably want a few players that way in case you lose.
Sure.
There's a good chance that you can still win.
Yeah. Even though we don't, I don't think this is a bad thing, but we don't really see her gambling prowess. You know what I mean? She kind of seems to be in the game, but she's neither the loser in that encounter or the winner. But
she's just helping his odds.
Sure, it could be. I didn't even consider that. But we then get to see a little hint of Le Chiffre being like bad because he's like, hey, give them 5 minutes to get off of the boat, and if they don't, throw them overboard. And I think it was interesting. I don't know if my memory warped about this movie or if I'm mixing it up with another movie, but I always thought that he said give them 5 minutes or you can just like shoot them and throw them overboard. But that's not what it is. I was just saying like, oh, it's not that bad. But all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just, if you can't swim, then maybe. But if you can, then like it's just kind of mean. You know what I mean? It's just kind of rude.
Okay, we're done. Get out.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought you were saying that to me. Like, can we get to the next topic? I'm like, whoa, what in the world? But there's not too much there. But we then go to Emma's penthouse.
Yes.
And at first we don't really know where James is. Yeah, he just has the phone and he like hooks it up to this computer and he's kind of typing some stuff in. We get to see some like, what is that called? The reference isn't even worth it. Forget it. Like Chaos Theory. I can't remember Sam Fisher, like that stealth game, but Splinter Cell. We get to see like some Chaos Theory level, like that era of like, whoa, this is high spy tech. You know what I mean? And he's like searching for where this text was sent from. He finds that it's the Bahamas.
What I like about this scene is like, yes, it gives him a little back and forth with M.
Yeah. Well, we haven't even gotten to how they get to a back and forth, really.
But it also just shows his skill.
Yeah.
Because her line is, how the hell did you get in here?
Yeah.
Like, she's
so even
mad.
Yeah. Well, that and she doesn't know.
Yeah. And he breaks into her computer and he's like, I didn't realize your name standed for. And she's like, don't you dare
utter another syllable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is such a funny line.
No, and that shows like he's very quippy. And because I haven't seen anyone besides this guy as Bond, besides like tiny clips. I guess this is a decent time to ask: is Bond usually this quippy?
Honestly, he's way more.
Really?
Some of the other movies, it can get distracting and a little old.
Oh, really?
Especially the Roger Moore era.
Okay.
Which, if you watch Austin Powers or Johnny English or something like that,
those
pretty similar.
Based
on his Bond movies.
Okay, that'd be interesting to check out. Because I haven't seen Austin Powers at all, but I've definitely seen Johnny English.
So it's a good amount enough of humor.
You're saying here in Casino Royale?
For this type of movie.
Okay.
But if you watch other ones and you go, oh my gosh, like
it's way too much. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. But the idea is, as he's searching through all this stuff, he gets the information that he needs, and then we see that M comes through the elevator, and it's like, wait, where is he? And we find out that he's actually in M's private apartment, which, with her saying, how did you get in here, that shows, one, that even though she's like the leader of MI6, she doesn't know how he did it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool because it shows like he's at that level.
He's smart. I mean?
Yeah. He really knows what he's doing.
He's not just muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
He's good at the physical stuff, but he's really smart.
And we get to see that I think later because there's a point where like he's logged into her account at somewhere else, and this is when like they wake her up or whatever, and she's like, "How the hell does he keep on? How does he do this? Yes, he keeps on circumventing me, and I'm like, the woman. You can't do that to me."
Yeah, and I think that's so funny because then again, they realize, hey, he's in a little bit of trouble, but he might be onto something here. So it's kind of like he knows that as soon as he logs in, they're gonna know about it.
Yeah, it's almost like he's doing this on purpose because I never got the understanding that that's the only computer that he could have used to get the information that he does. Yeah. He almost does it to get a rise out of M.
Yeah. He knows all the little... He knows that she's going to be like, why is he doing this? He knows that they're going to find out.
Yeah.
And because he's on vacation.
Yeah.
Because he gets in trouble.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about in a minute. But I love how one thing in this movie has a bunch of different meanings.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole lot said with one action.
Yeah.
And
Can you give an example of that? Like maybe we've just covered something.
like we just covered it.
yeah.
He knows that as soon as he logs into her account, they're gonna know about it.
Yeah.
They call her immediately.
Like it's not that he's dumb and going,
he's
well,
not.
computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows that by using her account.
Yeah.
But it's also, they're like, well, what's he looking at? And then they realize that there's
something going
deeper
on
meaning.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're like, she's like, oh, who's he looking into? And they're like, Demetrius.
Yeah, because he goes on they make him go on like a vacation, like a forced holiday.
Yeah, like go wherever you want, but just leave.
The place that he chooses is where the bomb maker's delivery is supposed to go.
Yeah. Is it where the delivery was supposed to go or where the text was sent from?
I don't know if the text was sent there, but it was definitely to the person the text was sent from.
Yeah. Well, no, and the reason I say that is because later we'll kind of be jumping ahead of ourselves by getting into this. I want to see how in order we can go.
Okay.
But yeah, after they have kind of like a really humorous like set of banter, so to speak, between them, we can see that M is mad at Bond, but not enough to go like, I'm kicking you out or something like that. But then, like you said, Bond arrives in the Bahamas, and he's just kind of chilling. You know what I mean? We're gonna kind of
this is his little like forced vacation.
Yeah, and he's enjoying it too because there's this really funny point where he's like tying his shoes or whatever, and I guess he's dressed so plainly that one of the other guests who pulls up thinks that he's a valet.
Yeah.
So he gives him the keys, and he's like, "Hey, you're gonna take my car or what?" He's like, "Oh yeah, all right, all right, let's go." So he jumps in the car and he drives over, and he parks it. But then he purposely slams back into this guardrail that sets off all these car alarms. So now so many people at this like Bahama resort are super mad. And he just
where do you think all the security is going?
Well, no, and that's the other thing. Because at first I was like, is this like just for comedy? Like, is he just like
being
chaotic?
Mad because the guy threw his keys. No,
like what's going on? But it's like no, he goes, this is a situation that is here, and almost now that I'm thinking about it, it was maybe on purpose.
That because he smashed the car?
No, that he just, right when he gets his car taken, that he's dressed the way he is and that he ties his shoes because he's there for a while. So I wonder if he was there for long enough to make it seem like he was a valet to then purposely do that. Because how is he going to distract the people? I think it
just happened to his benefit where he was dressed similarly.
Okay.
And, this rich, jerk is just going to throw his keys. This guy looks less than me, so I'm sure he works here. Yeah. And, Bond uses it as a way to get back, but also as cover.
Yeah. So it's what you're saying is it's more like he conveniently uses the situation that he's presented with, to get what he wants.
Yeah.
I guess I've played too much Hitman, and I know that you can like go in with the outfit that you want, so you can be disguised. So I don't know. But either way, like there's no issue with it being one or the other. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just saying that because I'm like, no, I kind of want to be right. But he uses that as, like you said, as a distraction for the security guards to go. He can then very easily slip into that place, which, if I want to be really picky, I don't know why they didn't have at least one person stay there. Because he doesn't have to do anything beyond there, and it reminds me of The Dark Knight Rises.
Maybe there's just not as much of a security risk. Sure. Obviously, Bond wrecking the car, he knows that all security, everybody's going to be focused on that. Even if you're not out there where the car is.
And I agree.
That's what everybody's going to be talking about. So this guy who, is dressed similarly, which he's dressed casually enough to where you go, nobody would wear that. Yeah. Who wears that out? Yeah. Like, there's
especially at like this kind of place. Yeah. You're dressing really nice because everyone has like a bunch of money.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's a very tiny, like not even enough to be a problem, really. I think it would have been better if they had one person and then he had to go, oh, what do I do now? And then he comes up with a little distraction. He gets that person out, and then he does the rest.
And he doesn't stay there for too long. He gets just enough information to go, okay, I'm gonna go and this is what's next.
Yeah, and the reason that I say that is where the text was sent from is because he then gets like the disc for the video recording for when it was sent. He sees who we later find out is Demetrius come out of the car, and he sends a text, and that's when he freezes, and it's right at the time that the text is sent. So that's why I'm saying that was the origin point of that. He finds the person. He asks in like a real suave way to the like lady in the front. Yeah. Like, hey, if I might have like nicked this guy's car, how could I apologize to him in a way to like get where he lives? Yeah.
And she does the whole, well, if he doesn't know about it, I wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
He just goes, but if I was compelled to.
Yeah, exactly. You've clearly seen this recently because that's the exact word he uses. But this then leads to him finding Demetrius's wife. He's like getting out of the beach and he just happens to see her where he knows that Demetrius lives. And then this leads to round one of of them going toe to toe, so to speak.
Yes, Demetrius and Bond play cards.
Yeah.
Bond, and that's where Bond wins.
Yeah.
The car.
Yeah. And this is really important. And why is it important, Jacob? Because what kind of car does he win?
It's an Aston Martin.
Really? Is that like important or something
not just
to
any
James
old
Bond
Aston Martin
mythology?
But it's a great callback to the early Sean Connery days.
There you go.
With that Aston Martin, that specific color, that style.
Really?
It's
Very cool. So the Aston Martin is kind of like the Batmobile for
pretty
Batman.
much.
Yeah.
There are a few other Bond cars. He has a few Lotuses in like the 70s and 80s, which are really cool looking.
Yeah.
He's got a few BMWs, but you don't really.
The Aston Martin.
The Aston Martin is
And I think during the Daniel Craig era, they have that's like the car, right?
Yeah.
They bring back the Aston Martin.
In most of them, in a few of them, they do change it up a bit.
Okay.
But then they go back. They go, nah, this is Bond's car.
Because I think in No Time to Die, he has an Aston Martin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw
he's got
a clip or something.
He's got a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or my dad might have been watching it or something, and I saw like a little bit of a car chase. And I was like, whoa, that looks cool, but I'm doing something else. I don't know. But yeah, he wins the car, and he, in a sense, like wins the girl too, because she kind of walks up and is like, "Oh, I thought this was I just realized that you won the car." So,
but not only that is, Bond is nice to her.
Yeah, that's true.
Demetrius is a jerk, which you pretty much not only because he's like a villainous character.
Yeah, no, but you see it happen.
He's just
specifically with her.
Such a stuffy sort of kind of a person.
Yeah.
So
the first time that we see them interact is she's like walking in like a little late or something.
Yeah.
And he immediately, like in front of everyone, says, I think it's something along the lines of, if this is for
luck, you're an hour late or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah. Oh, it was luck. I heard lunch, and I was like, that's a weird line. But yeah, no, that makes sense.
If you're looking for lunch, it's too late.
Yeah, it's like nighttime. She really is late. What
yeah.
the world? Oh man,
but then they have these funny sort of quips, and then he does the whole how about a drink at my place?
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And she goes, is it far or is it close? He goes,
nah.
He's like, yeah, it's pretty close. And then they literally just go around the roundabout into a parking lot and drive right back to the entrance.
Yeah, and the guy goes, welcome back, Bond. Yeah. Or whatever. That was really funny. And they're kind of like talking and making out and stuff like that. And through their conversation, Bond is able to find out, or I think she gets like a text.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, he's on like the last flight to Miami. And then...
well, this is a very important scene.
Okay.
Because especially up until this point, Bond is known for sleeping with everyone.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting was going to happen here.
Especially in the Roger Moore era. Roger Moore referred to himself as the lover of the Bond actors because Bond sleeps with everybody. And if you hear people think that Bond is a sexist, Roger Moore era is kind of the reason why you really can't argue against it.
Yeah.
But in this movie, Bond seduces her enough to get the information, and then he's gone.
Yeah. No, and I really appreciated that because I remember when I was watching it like last night, I was thinking it's cool that like I think he'd be totally down for sleeping with her and whatever, but he doesn't let that desire come in between him and the mission.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, the person who I have to be telling is going to be gone. I got to be out.
He knows that it's the last flight. Yeah. He might not realize that a bomb is going to go off at the airport.
Sure.
But he knows, okay, I gotta keep going.
Yeah.
Like.
So he does, and he follows Demetrius to, like this body museum
at the airport. Yeah.
Was it at the airport? I thought they like left the airport. Or it's close.
I guess they're
like an exhibit
enough.
or something. I don't know. I think it's called kinesthesiology. I think I'm not sure. But it's just showing like people, like statues or whatever without skin, so you can see like the muscles and things like that. And we get to see like 3 of these figures near or like around a poker table, which I think is interesting just because like the kind of fits the theme and everything.
Yeah, and Demetrius puts that.
It's like a
locker,
valet, like a valet coin or something that you turn in, and then he can get his duffel bag. Yeah,
and obviously he spots Bond.
Yeah,
which it's kind of the first time in a while that a jump like Bond didn't necessarily see something coming.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously there's the whole opening thing, but that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the guy Bond was working with.
Sure.
So this is the first time the drop is kind of on Bond.
Yeah. And this is actually where we get to my 3rd issue with this movie. And that is that what happens is Demetrius sneaks up on Bond and he has a knife at his back. And Bond is able to very quickly turn around and grab Demetrius' hand. So it kind of turns into like a tug of war with a knife, but they're trying to both push it towards the other person. It's kind of going back and forth.
But it's not a super exaggerated thing.
Sure.
If you walked by, you would have never known.
Sure. I don't have an issue with that either.
Guys,
It looks like a matte black knife, so it's not going to like be glinting or something like that. They just look like they're looking at each other. They could be having a conversation where they kind of want it to be hush-hush. My issue is Bond clearly gets the upper hand. Or I guess not clearly, because he could just survive it, I suppose. But he is able to stab Demetrius, and then he just places him down on like a statue or something and walks away.
Yeah.
The thing is that I don't understand why Demetrius doesn't like yell when that happens. Because he's clearly trying to make sure that Bond is not able to get towards the duffel bag or towards the person who's going to pick it up, who's then going to enact the rest of the plan.
Do they share a conversation?
I don't know that they do. But Demetrius knows that Bond is up to something because they were just in the Bahamas together. And now they're both in Miami together. That's why he goes to stab him. It's not like, oh, you're just a random dude who's just following
clearly
me. Like,
he's not a random guy who won my car.
Yeah, and like likely not like a stalker either. And it's not like, hey, you stole my girl and therefore I'm going to stab you. Yeah. It's clearly you're after me for some reason.
There's no chance that I would see you again here.
Yeah. So that's why I don't understand why he wouldn't cry out. Because even if his prints are on the knife, all it looks like is like Bond stabbed this dude. And
I don't know, maybe, of course I've never been stabbed before, so I can't really say. Sure. There might be a little bit of shock. I mean, clearly he's going to die.
I suppose. Well, I don't even necessarily know that that's the case, because
I just assume so because we never see him again. Which obviously doesn't mean he died. But
yeah, like the rule for people who've seen Game of Thrones is if you don't see the death happen, it hasn't happened. Stannis Baratheon is still alive in my heart. All right, look, but that was a theory I held to the end of the show.
He's gonna come back.
I know, but spoilers for something actually like more recent. But but we don't really see where this guy gets stabbed, but I can't think of a place beyond like his throat where he would get stabbed and not be able to, even with shock, be able to cry out or make some sort of noise. This dude is silent as the grave.
I can see where that comes from, but I think it was just a good way. Okay, you saw him get stabbed. He's out of the picture. He's not in Bond's way anymore.
Sure.
I think that's just what that's supposed to be.
Sure.
Where, obviously, if Bond can not make the kill so obvious, because, he's on vacation, really, and by the time he would be bailed out by his government or whatever would happen, clearly this bomb, which we don't necessarily know at this point will go off, would have gone off. Or something would have happened. Mm-hmm. So I think this is just a good, quick kill. Just get out of the way. I really just think that's all it is.
I'm fine with things going this way. I just wish the method would have been different. Mm-hmm. I wish that, I think this would have worked a lot better. If Demetrius was like, when he gets the knife on Bond, he then leads him away to like a secluded place and then Bond kills. You know what I mean? And we could just have it that the guy was a little early.
I also think that this shows like Bond makes a lot of noise at the embassy. Mm-hmm. He's on vacation now.
Yeah.
Does he really want to leave a trail of bodies? Which
sure,
he kind of
well, he does
in a
anyway.
little
You know
bit.
what I mean? I just wish that he did in a way that made it so
Yeah.
there wasn't such a clear counterplay. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And maybe it's not that big a deal. I know that, like, I'm probably more critical than most people.
I just saw it as a
You know
quick
what I mean?
kill, get it
Yeah.
out of the way. He's not a problem anymore.
Yeah. And it's not that, like, Demetrius is, like, an important character
Yeah.
where we have to have, like, a dramatic death for
Yeah.
him. I really don't care about this person. That's
Yeah.
not why I'm saying it. It's just, it seems so simple for him to just mess Bond up. And here's the thing. I would have been fine with, this is another thing. I would have been fine with them doing it the way that they did, except he yells, and now Bond not only has to chase after this guy, but also has to run away. And it's like, man, Bond, you need to be doing better, but it's like at the same time.
And not only that, by the time this ends, it's just enough to keep Bond busy.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who grabbed the keychain.
Sure.
So,
no, I agree.
You know, I think that also causes enough to be a little bit of a problem for him. He's like, great, I've followed it this far.
Yeah.
What happens now?
Sure. I agree that it's. I'm not saying that because he does it in the way that he does, then there's no issue. It's just, to me, there are at least two ways that it could have been done better.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I feel like having a quick, quiet death, it makes all the other like fights and action nicer because we've had the big actions. We've had a few big action scenes, and we're about to have another one.
I just thought of a third way I think it could have been done better.
How?
Don't use a knife. Use a syringe.
But who carries a syringe?
I don't know. But what I'm saying is this dude has a syringe with him somehow. We can come up with a way. I think it's easy.
I feel like a
think it
knife
makes
is a
more
little
sense.
bit more...
Well, the reason I say a syringe is because then it puts him to sleep and kills him. And then there's no way that he can talk because it was the plan to just put Bond to sleep.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? This is an evil bad person.
If he knew...
They can have all sorts
now,
of tools.
If
You know what I mean?
he knew Bond was following him,
sure,
then I would have agreed with that.
Sure.
But I feel like if this guy just pulls out a syringe and is like...
Sure.
He's
Well,
like,
what I'm saying is I think it... I realize this is more rewriting, but again, this is the third
I have a lot
way.
of people following me, so I always keep this syringe
exactly.
that's
You
gonna
never
put you
know.
to sleep.
Exactly.
I always carry it on.
Or you can pull like the classic anime, like, well, I knew you were following me, and therefore I prepared for every contingency.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, type of a thing. But I realize it's more rewrites, but you could just have it that like Le Chiffre knows that Bond is following this dude. I don't know. And then, hey, because they meet, and he's like, I can still do the job for you.
Yeah.
He gets some tools or whatever. Hey, I think someone's following me. I'll use this. This will do this or whatever. I don't know. This is not so important that we need to be going through, like, how to rewrite this scene, which we already did. But this then leads to them going to the airport and this big scene. Do you want to break this down for us? Kind of what's going on here, what's really cool about the scene, and especially how does this differ from the two action scenes that we've seen thus far?
Yeah, so in this scene, as soon as Bond leaves Demetrius, he realizes that somebody's picked up the keychain with the code to, or the number of the locker where all the stuff is.
Yeah.
So Bond does something really smart. He runs out and he has Demetrius' phone and he calls the last number.
Yeah. And I thought that was really smart. I was like, there's no way he can find this dude.
Because he's looking around, he sees the guy pick up his phone and he goes, okay, you're my guy.
Yeah.
And he follows him and it really leads to this great action sequence where Bond realizes that the biggest jet in the world, or at least commercial jet in the world, is about to take off. It's about to be blown up.
Yeah.
He calls M to figure, I guess, logistics.
Yeah.
And it literally, it culminates with Bond getting arrested.
Yeah.
Which you don't want.
Yeah.
With your secret agent, but the whole fight scene on the gas truck.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to bring up.
The
use of vehicles is what I would say completely changes this fight scene from the others.
Yeah.
Because while in the construction site, we use like some sort of heavy machinery to like climb up and catch him, and like break through some stuff. This is kind of almost exclusively centered on this car, this like fuel car.
Well, and not only that, Bond loses his weapon.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to climb up at one point the side of this.
Yeah.
There's another vehicle coming.
Yeah.
And they're about to scrape, and he doesn't make it.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I got to bail.
Yeah.
And
he has to chase after it again. And
Yeah, and it culminates with this little bomb that the guy put on the truck, which was obviously going to go into the plane.
Mm-hmm. And this is a fuel truck, so it would really
go.
Yeah.
Not only that is like Bond quickly gets him and hooks it on him, and we don't realize it until the guy hits the button and Bond's like, like
and
then the guy hears the beeping and doesn't have enough time
to take it off.
I mean, I think that's such a cool scene, because at this point I feel like Le Chiffre has got to be like, okay, what's happening, because each one of these levels
it's not working.
These people keep dying.
That too.
You know what's happening. I think that's, I just think it shows such a physicality in Daniel Craig's performance.
Yeah, I agree. And that then kind of leads us to what has been happening on Le Chiffre's side. Mm-hmm. Because at the beginning, when he is introduced, he gets some money from a couple of like African bad people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like some really in the underworld type of stuff over there. He gets a bunch of money, and he immediately tells like his broker or whoever, hey, take all that money and bet it against this certain stock. And the guy's like, wait, but the stock isn't going to go down. And he's like, I don't care, do it.
Yeah.
And only now do we realize that stock was this airplane company. Yeah. And the idea is that if he was able to blow up the prototype, then that company would be completely down the drain, and he would get all of this money and have way more than before. Yeah. But because this doesn't work and he loses all of that money,
that's why he's got to play the game.
That leads to the game at Casino Royale. So that is how Le Chiffre needs to gets to the point where he needs to be there. But do you want to talk about what causes Bond to get in the game? There are a couple of things I would say.
There are a few things. Yeah. So Bond meets with M, and we realize that Le Chiffre, his people found out that Demetrius's girlfriend or wife or whoever, she's the one who gave up the information.
Well, and only kind of. It's like the idea that she was the only one who was alive to question.
Whether or not she realized it or not, or what he was dealing with, which caused her death. Yeah. And M isn't very happy, because at this point, Bond is really just leaving a trail of bodies.
Yeah, very much so. There are at least 4, and at least 2 of those I don't think M would have approved of. The married woman and the bomb maker.
Yeah. So clearly, that threat is sort of starting to appear, which really goes through a few of his films. Yeah. And this is where M's really starts to put the pieces together and sends Bond really on this mission of, like, firstly, he's the best poker player.
Apparently.
The fact that that's known, I think is hilarious.
Yeah, that's funny because
it's so cool.
Yeah, it makes you think, like, about stories that will never be in the movie or in any of the movies. It's like, when MI6 is just having their Christmas party, they gamble and whatever.
They play.
And everyone hates it when James Bond shows up, because they're like, freaking dude, I have to sit behind a computer all day, and this guy gets to punch bad guys, and he gets all my money.
Not only is this a great scene, but it reveals a lot later on when he doesn't. When things don't go his way. It's,
well, we see that he's too confident. Yeah. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So this really sets up, I would say, the main plot of the movie.
Yeah. Everything has just been set up.
If you read the synopsis on IMDb or online or something, what we're getting into is the main plot of the movie. Yeah. But at this point, we're about an hour into the movie. Yeah. And I think that's such an interesting aspect, where you'll read a synopsis for a movie, and you either get to it later on in the movie, or I also like it when the plot is finished in the movie. Like in Django Unchained, the original plot of that movie is that Dr. King Schultz hires Django to find these guys. Okay. Within 45 minutes, boom, that's done. Okay, what's the next plot of the movie? Yeah. There's another great Christian Bale movie. It's called Out of the Furnace.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
What you read on the synopsis doesn't happen until the end.
Really?
Yeah.
And there's just all this other stuff.
There's just all this
on.
other stuff, and you go, oh, like I think,
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't see it. I could understand people seeing that as sort of something that they don't like.
Yeah, I think it would be a case by case basis for me. But yeah,
but I think that's such an interesting aspect of like, okay, now we're really getting into it, because at this point, Bond and the main villain haven't even met.
Yeah, they're about to pretty soon. But I'm trying to see if we have it on here. I don't know. We'll get to it. But yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but Le Chiffre has lost a bunch of money from all sorts of like different criminals and things like that.
This is last ditch effort.
Yeah, where he is going into the game going, I have to win so that all of these different criminal organizations still have their money, including I think Spectre or whatever, which I guess we find out later. Not even in this movie, and Bond is going there going, I have to make sure he doesn't win so that then that affects like all sorts of criminal organizations and I've done really good for the world. And that actually, I want to touch on this now because it just hit me. There are so many like grand action movies and I don't like a lot of them. I don't like big stories, I've realized, because they feel very impersonal and it's always like the world is going to end. But I like that this isn't really that. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to make sure that all the baddies who have any tie into them.
This is going to upset a lot of criminal organizations.
Yeah, and it's not going to save the world, quote unquote, but it is going to do a lot towards making the world a better place. And I think that as the goal is a really cool thing because it's so different from so many movies.
Yeah.
So I'm really appreciative of that, and I didn't even realize that till now. But for Bond to be able to buy into this game, I think there's like a $10 million buy-in from the beginning, and then there's like a $5 million rebuy. It's either 10 million or 100 million, I'm not sure, and then like 50 for the second one, if it's not 5. But whichever it is, the specific numbers don't matter. It's a lot of money.
Well, and it's so much money that it's the British and American governments working together.
Yeah. Well, they do eventually because they don't go into it together.
What's Vesper's?
I don't think
she's not a part of the British government.
No, but she's not a part of the American government either. I don't think.
Whoever she's a part of.
Yeah.
Her group,
I think that's kind of a mystery.
Oh, okay. Her group.
It's just hey, she has a lot of money and she's MI6 deems her worthy of like working with them.
She's high enough status.
Yeah.
MI6 isn't like, all right, let's pull some names out of the hat.
Yeah, exactly.
To see who,
Oh, Jeff Bezos, cool. I wonder if we can get him to give us some money. But I don't think they really get into that. I think they gloss over it. But Vesper, as you've just said, she is the Bond girl for this movie. And she is also an accountant and clearly very rich because she is the one who has up to, I think it's 15 million to give to Bond.
Well, and that's where her organization comes into.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Bond girl is
one
of the important staples. And there have been a lot of really good Bond girls and a lot of really bad ones. And the best ones are always strong characters.
Yeah.
So that's License to Kill. That's GoldenEye.
Yeah. Or like you were saying earlier, not just damsels in distress.
There are a lot of damsels in distress.
Capable
and
women.
Needy women in Bond's life who kind of take away the value of the movie.
Yeah.
But when Bond is with a strong female character who isn't just into him, then I think that's another one of those things, like the whole Bond, stuff being stripped away.
Yeah.
That elevates the movie.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I think it makes for a more interesting dynamic between the characters. I think this is the only one that I've seen that is like that, at least thus far. Just because, like I've said throughout, I haven't seen very many of these. But like as a person, I way back we had a conversation about what our favorite genre was, and I had said sci-fi, and we agreed that it was sci-fi for the both of us. But I think since I may have changed to romance being my favorite. I don't know if I told you that. Maybe I did. But for any romantic comedy or any movie that has romance at the center, if the two people were to just get together and be totally fine, and half of the relationship isn't even like has no depth or anything. That's just boring to watch. You know what I mean?
Right away,
yeah,
we learn so much about these two characters and how smart they are in their interplay.
Yeah, and how they kind of butt heads. This is
they don't get along.
Yeah, because we understand the tropes of Bond. We understand that they probably will get together, at least temporarily. But if we didn't know that, we would just go, they're not getting together. He thinks she's hot.
Usually,
but she
what's nice about this movie is it builds up.
Yeah.
In the Roger Moore ones, he just has to look at the girl and she's basically taking off her clothes.
There you go.
Know? So for there to actually be some sort of relationship and there's really trust built.
Yeah. No, and we'll get to that, definitely. But what you were talking about seeing how smart they are, that's something that really interests me. And that's something that I touched on earlier. They're on a train together, and they're kind of talking about what the plan is. She's saying, hey, I'm the money, you're the gambler, you're going to, like, win everything, and if you don't, we will be, like, our government or whatever will have directly financed terrorism.
Yeah.
So, no pressure.
No pressure
or anything.
At all.
And then that leads into, like, he flirts with her a little bit, but then that leads into them... Like I was saying before, like surmising things about each other.
They also do like a whole they knock each other down a peg like psychologically.
Yeah.
And because he makes a quip about her probably being an orphan, and she goes, "Well, since you assume that of me, I'm probably going to assume that of you." Yeah. And it's like, oof.
Yeah.
Like,
because it's not well, like it's not bad to be an orphan, clearly, but just I think the way that it's presented is like, oof. If you're trying to get with this girl. Because she's clearly not trying to get with you. This is not the best way to do that. Like, you're being a little too honest right here. But I really like that. It reminds me a lot of in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie when Sherlock is there with Watson and Mary.
Yeah.
And Mary's like, oh, you can, like, tell things about people based off of small things?
Yeah.
And she's like, you should do that. Like, that whole scene, you know what I mean? Where it ends with, like, him getting water thrown in his face or whatever. It reminded me a lot of that, and since I'm a really big fan of those movies, then I liked seeing something similar here in this scene, And it goes towards, this works as establishing what the relationship is like between these two, and we see that evolve at Casino Royale. Yeah. So that's pretty cool stuff. Here we arrive in Montenegro, which is where we are going to be spending, as like the audience, a good chunk of the rest of the movie. This is where Casino Royale is, where the game is. We're ready. Here I have in the outline Bond car in all caps. I think I did that because of your prompting. Was there something here that you wanted to
I just wanted to establish, just like the Bond girl, the Bond car is very important.
Yeah. And this is different from the Aston Martin that we saw earlier, correct? Yes. Okay. And so how is it different?
This is a newer version, but not only that is, if you're a fan of really any of the Bond films, I think it can be pretty much agreed that in 3 of the Pierce Brosnan, he has BMWs, which are nice and all, but it's not. It doesn't give you the same feeling. Yeah. And then in the last one, he gets a Aston Martin. But it turns invisible and has rockets and all this really crappy stuff.
Oh my goodness.
So the fact that we get to see a new one.
Yeah, and like a grounded one.
Clearly we've been watching this movie for an hour, so you know how gritty this movie is.
Yeah, and how like realistic it is. It's not just full of like invisible cars.
When you see it, it's like, okay. Yeah. Because you see this Aston Martin... And there's not all this like crazy technology or invisibility. Yeah. It's like a real, like you can like see somebody even around here. If you saw an Aston Martin, you'd be like, oh wow, that's a really cool car.
That's really nice.
But it's not so unbelievable. That you're just like, well, that was dumb.
And you were talking earlier about how we don't get to see Q until Skyfall. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Q is like the tech guy.
Quartermaster.
He's the one who gets.
Which
I didn't know that's what it stood for.
There could be another Q. We just don't meet that character.
Sure.
Bond just comes, and there's a package waiting for you at the front desk.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. That this is where we get a couple of gadgets. Yeah, because
he gets his gun.
Yeah, he gets his gun, and he gets also a defibrillator. That we'll see later.
But
And I think there may have been like a couple other things. Those are the only two things that I remember. But that's kind of the stand-in, I would say, for the scene where it's like, hey, this is your watch. It does this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like you were saying, this is a very stripped down version of it. He kind of looks at the gun. We see the defib right there, and it's kind of whatever. We then continue on. We meet a character named Mathis who, just to let you know now, so you can kind of be thinking about this, I also have at least one issue with him.
Okay.
But near the end. So we'll get to it then. But he meets Mathis. We get to kind of understand how he works as a part of the team. He's the contact. He's been watching Le Chiffres for a bit. He kind of has some inside knowledge.
He has a lot of inside knowledge of people in general, which we learn about very quickly.
Yeah, because we see like him in a pretty funny and smart way, like take out the police commissioner or whatever, but like embroiling him in like scandal or whatever, and his own police are like taking him away. And it's like, yeah, you know, all in a day's work kind of thing. No biggie.
Which sets up something else that we'll talk about a little later on.
Okay. But from there, we get a fun scene in relation to like watching Bond and Vesper develop as a couple, which is that Vesper sized Bond up. He has like the suit that he finds and it's tailored and it fits him perfectly. And he's like, how did she know? Like, what in the world?
And her line being, I sized you up on the train.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I first met you, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
This goes towards what you were saying about her not just being a damsel in distress. We see that one, she is like strong and independent, and she's like, I'm not really interested in being in a relationship with you. I understand that you treat women as just like commodities, not as like actual people. You know what I mean? Which I think very much like you were saying speaks to past Bonds. But we also get to see that she's very smart and very skilled to the point where just by looking at someone, she can go, yeah, that's their measurements. This is exactly how everything can, you know what I mean? They kind of plan what's going to happen, what kind of psychological tricks they're going to play as the game goes on. Like she is supposed to be a distraction for everybody else.
Yeah, because
and that kind of,
he's shocked that she sized him up, but he did the same thing to her.
When I was watching it, it didn't seem that was the case. Like the dress fits really well, but
the dress fits her, but she's also like, I'm not gonna wear that. He's like, no, because you need to come up behind me, kiss me on the neck, and you need to distract everybody.
Yeah,
you know,
where they're gonna be looking at your neckline
instead of what's in their hands.
Yeah, in their cards. Yeah.
Which is such a great, funny moment.
Yeah, and it's cool that we get to see them playing the game outside the game. Like we were talking about how like poker, you're often playing the other person. This is kind of a way that happens, and we get to see way more nefarious ways that people play the game outside the game as we go on. But we get to night one because this game is apparently big enough that it doesn't finish all in one night.
Yeah, lots of those poker competitions are very long. Some of them can last multiple nights.
I didn't know that.
They typically, like, you have a lot of late night games.
Yeah.
And they'll go on for hours. You'll have the hour break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not
unusual,
a movie thing.
Yeah.
And it's just these types of high stakes games. They're not going to be over in 2 hours.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, so much money is invested. This is going to last a long time.
Yeah, and it also depends on like how much people are willing to put in. You know what I mean, at a time. Because if they just go, oh, hello, Chip.
And I made a note here about the pacing.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting because I probably first saw this movie when I was like 10 or 11, and I was bored by it because I was 10 or 11, and I'm used to big action and all this sort of stuff. But as an adult, and I'm rewatching this movie over and over again, like it's exciting.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
because it's more about the characters and specifically Bond and Le Chiffre in the game as opposed to who's going to win that round.
Yeah.
And I just
how
think,
they interact with each other and what is going on apart from each other too. Which we'll get to that. But there is the first break after and during this part in the game, Bond is confident that he has picked up Le Chiffre's tell. Yeah. And for people who don't know, pretty much the idea with that is when you're playing poker, You will sometimes get good hands, sometimes get bad hands, and sometimes you'll try to lie about what hand you have. Maybe you'll
have a reaction or something.
And you'll be trying to hide that, but generally most people have some sort of thing that they do that if they do it, it shows, oh, they're nervous. Oh, if they actually still try to act like they have a good hand, they really don't. So I can call them on it and I'm going to win. So that's a staple in poker. You're not just going, oh, what cards do I have? You're looking at people while trying to keep what's called a poker face, where you're trying to not have any sort of tells, which that's very difficult to do. But Bond is pretty sure that he has gotten his main opponent's tell, which is super big, because if he has it, then he can pretty reliably just win the game.
Yeah.
So he gets that. And then they take a break. He loses some money, but he's like, hey, it's worth it. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, I had to do that in order to figure out the tell.
Yeah. So he goes, and the two Africans that we see from the beginning of the movie, during the villain intro, show up.
They are not happy.
Yeah.
This really shows the start of the breakdown of Lashif.
Sure, yeah.
Because you see him as this menacing sort of character, but then you realize he's lost all this money, and this is the only way he's going to get it back.
Yeah, and it's not that there's a lot of pressure on him to get it.
One, I feel like even if he does win it, there's nothing stopping these people from killing him.
Yeah.
If you lost all my money, this is a consequence whether you get it back from me or not. You
still made a really poor decision. Why should I keep my money with
you?
And is he going to be fine with giving it back? We don't know.
Yeah.
But there's this altercation, and this leads, because somehow, for some reason, Bond and Vesper were on the same floor. They hear what's going on, and they're about to leave, or at least Vesper's about to leave. These people come out, they're acting like they're kissing, but then
they realize,
he has a implant in his ear or something to be able to hear things, and they realize oh, this is not a good person, not a person who we want to have seen us. So that's when we get into yet another action scene, and this one is also pretty confined, or it's a very vertical action scene because it happens in a stairwell.
Yeah,
and something that I thought was really cool about this. Each of these action scenes are so different from each other. It's not, oh, well, just turn your brain off. It's what is different about this? And what's really different here is not only the locale, but also the fact that Vesper is there, and she's not involved in the fighting.
And that's not a part of her job.
Yeah.
So she can't
she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But she is constantly in danger as collateral, because she's running down the stairs, and it's not that one of the guys, because I think one of them just gets thrown over really quickly and they're gone. But the last guy
puts up a good fight.
Yeah, and it's not that he's specifically going for Vesper, but we can tell there's tension in the fight because Vesper could get messed up at any moment.
Bond knows he has to protect her.
Yeah.
Not only is it me just fighting you and protecting my life, but I have this other person that...
Yeah.
And
he's very vulnerable in the situation.
And I like that later on we realize, I don't think Lashif realizes the kindness that Bond kind of did him.
Yeah, because now he doesn't have as much pressure. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Though I don't know how you would communicate that. You know what I mean? But afterwards, this ends with Vesper does actually help in the fight slightly, because the bad guy is about to grab a gun.
And she,
and she kind of kicks it away, or something like that. And she watches as Bond kills him. And this is really important because it really messes her up.
Yeah.
While she's been in maybe some shady dealings before, she hasn't necessarily seen death right in front of her.
She hasn't seen somebody killed.
Yeah.
And this is really where the trust and respect really starts to build.
Yeah.
Because, she's the money and you have to win this game.
Yeah.
But then she also sees his side of it.
Yeah.
Which is he's got to, your job might be tough with what you do, but my job is psychologically way
damaging,
bigger.
Yeah. And like you were just saying, she develops respect for him, and I think there's trust built, because right after that is what we call the shower scene.
Yeah.
And I don't think shower scenes are necessarily foreign to Bond, but I think this one is pretty different because instead of it being like a segue to, illicit activities, it is instead she's pretty much having a breakdown because of
and
what she just saw.
I should say that in this shower scene, well, first we go back to the second half of that night.
Yeah.
Obviously, Vesper's not there. Bond has changed.
Yeah.
Le Chiffre realizes that Bond's changed and just thought, "Oh, you're sweating. Like,
Yeah.
I hope this game isn't too difficult for you."
Yeah, and being that you were saying like he doesn't realize the kindness that
Bond
has done.
literally
It's
just
like
done to
it's
him.
kind of funny to hear him say like, "Oh yeah, I hope the game's not getting to you too much," and he's like, "You jerk.
You have no idea what
exactly." Like
so then.
And I figured out, because we were trying to figure out the time yesterday of how that works. The second half of the game happens for that night, and then that's when the shower scene happens. It's not that we're really jumping in time.
And it happens super quick. We're not around for the second half of the first night very long.
No.
It's
pretty much just that quip, and then he like...
And then Bond goes back, and he goes to Vesper's room, which is connected to his, and he sees her in the shower.
Yeah.
And what's really important is... Firstly, she's using cold water.
Yeah, and she's fully clothed.
She's just like
distraught.
She's so traumatized. And the early, when they were on set for this,
you were going to tell me something.
The idea was that they would both be undressed.
Okay.
And Bond was like, "Well, she just saw somebody get killed.
Yeah.
So she's going to be, trying to process this.
Yeah.
Her nerves, her." Emotion, it's all going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
So his idea was Bond's just going to get in clothes too. Yeah. So that's why they're both wearing clothes.
That's cool.
And then you see Bond change, which I assume was cold water to hot water.
Yeah, or at least warmer. Yeah. Because I was thinking he has to be careful. If he scalds her, that's not really going to
and then you
help
see
the situation.
Him take her hand, and he's trying to get the nail or blood from under her nails, just trying to help her in any way because he realizes, this is not a
really
part of her job
it.
description.
Yeah.
This is something completely new.
Yeah. And I really appreciate...
and that was a Daniel Craig idea.
Yeah, big ups to Daniel Craig.
We're both going to be clothed. Nobody would think to take off their clothes, which I guess is probably pretty true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially if you're like processing this information. Like I don't think we've ever, either of us have been in that situation, but it makes a lot of sense. And I really appreciate... from like an appreciator of like romance stories, seeing not just like lovey-dovey stuff and not just like sex all the time, but rather like I'm really here for you.
When he doesn't take this time to take advantage of that either.
Yeah.
He realizes that would be a pretty terrible thing to do, and that's not even on his mind.
Yeah, he's just, I want to be here for you.
Yeah.
And that makes it so later on when we see their relationship, we go, that was one of the pivotal moments for that.
Yeah.
So.
Which follows the next great Mathis scene.
There we go.
We saw that him take down the police commissioner. Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing Bond tells Vesper, because he's got to get back to the game, is call Mathis. We need to get these bodies out of here.
Yeah, he needs to clean this up.
And he does it.
Yeah, and in a really funny way. And because we have to be getting through what we're talking about, I'm just going to skip this scene. I'm going to have a skip it. But if you guys want to watch it, then check out the movie if you haven't. And if you have, maybe watch it again if you don't know what we're talking about. But it's kind of funny. It really makes Mathis kind of like a warm person, so to speak. We kind of go, oh, he's funny in the way that he does stuff. You know what I mean? He's really skilled, but he enjoys his work.
He knows his job so well that he doesn't stress over, there's 2 dead bodies. How do I get rid of them?
Yeah.
He knows.
It's like the exact opposite of like Breaking Bad episode like 2, you know what I mean, where they have the couple of bodies, or like not episode 2, it's a little bit later than that, but you know what I'm talking about. They're like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? But we then get to night 2, and this is really important because in night 1 we see that Bond goes, I got his tell. It doesn't matter that I lost the battle to win the war. But
sometimes that can be used against you.
Yeah, because apparently that is not the case.
Yeah. Because
the thing that he thought was Le Chiffre's tell was apparently not at all, because he tries to use it. Yeah.
Le Chiffre really kind of let his guard down a little bit to make Bond think that he got it.
Yeah.
So it was really Bond trying to size up Le Chiffre, but Le Chiffre did the exact same thing to Bond.
Yeah.
And to greater effect.
Yeah, and this leads to them both going all in, which, for those who don't know poker at all, means like everything you have on the table that you have to bet with, you are betting on this, which then forces anyone else who wants to be a part of the bet
They
to
have
also
to do
have
it,
to
or
put
they have
everything, or they have to fold.
Yeah.
And just get out. But they both go all in, and Bond loses, which means all of the money that was given to him by Vesper is now gone.
Yeah. And she's not
at all
happy.
Not at all. And this kind of then causes the audience to think back to when Vesper said, if you lose, we will have directly financed terrorism.
Well, and M's like, hey, you're the best poker player.
Yeah, like this is
in the service,
yeah. Where we don't go like, oh wow, Bond's a chump. We go, whoa, he really got played.
Yeah.
You know? And he goes to Vesper, like, you're allowed to do a rebuy or like buy back in, whatever.
But she's so upset with them. They're not gonna do. She's like, no, we're not doing that.
You're not gonna use more money.
You can't come back. Yeah, no. Exactly. Not only did we finance terrorists, we're not gonna finance it even more.
Again, yeah. And that is where another character who is apparently also a staple of the Bond series, Felix Leiter.
Felix Leiter. He is part of the CIA.
Yeah. So the American side, the best side.
Yeah. And I didn't really realize this until my most recent like full Bond rewatch of how intricate of a character he is.
Really? Because we don't really get to see much of him in this movie.
We see a little bit.
Yeah.
But the Felix character is all the way back into the books. It's all the way back into Dr. No, the first Bond.
Wow.
One of Bond's contacts in Jamaica in Dr. No is Felix.
Okay.
And it's the two governments working together.
Yeah.
And that's such an important character because I think it's Jeffrey Wright who plays him in the Daniel Craig era. Yeah. But in all the other Bond movies, there's always a different actor or something, which I hate recasting. That is a pet peeve of mine.
Okay.
But Jeffrey Wright is my favorite of the Felix characters because he just has a good sense about him.
Yeah. I think I only remember him in Casino Royale, so I can't really comment on any of that.
But it's an important Bond character where he doesn't have to be in every Bond movie.
Yeah.
For a while, it seemed like that character was.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a need to be sort of a thing. In fact, I think they took a break from that character through all of the Pierce Brosnan Bond.
All right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just a fun thing where if you've watched a bunch of movies and it's 2006 and you're going to see Casino Royale in the theater, oh look, there's Felix.
Yeah, he's back.
He's back.
Yeah, if you've been like following them, then it's like, whoa, the whole gang is here, type of a thing. Well, I guess not the whole gang because Moneypenny and Q, but you know. But what I would say is like the main role of Felix being here in the game is he says, hey, look, I'm not good at this game. I'm bleeding chips.
He literally says, I'm bleeding chips.
Yeah, exactly. So he goes, look, I will stake you. You get the rest of the money that I have, and you can just play with it.
Yeah. You do this, and I get Le Chiffre at the end.
Yeah.
Which is...
And you guys get all the money, I get all the glory, so to speak.
And I think that's funny that Felix kind of figures out who Bond is really before anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, Le Chiffre can have an idea of this guy might be something else.
Yeah.
But it's really Felix who's like...
hey, I'm part of the CIA. You're part of MI6. Yeah,
and,
I can tell.
And that's a good gamble considering that he's basically out of the game.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah, that's an important moment because right when you think, oh great, Vesper's not going to help Bond buy back in.
Yeah.
He's basically done. In fact, I think doesn't Bond grab a knife and he's literally going to go kill Le Chiffre because he's like,
there's nothing else I can do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the whole Felix thing's happen where it's like your nerves are like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. How is he going to do? Like he's angry. Yeah. It's not going to go well. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Le Chiffre, he's the kind of guy who would yell if you stabbed him, unlike Demetrius.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this leads to Bond being back in the game.
Yeah.
But
this is really second part of Night 2.
Yeah. But the hits keep on coming.
Yeah.
Because Bond has been drinking quite a bit throughout this game. And he gets another one of like these signature drinks that he like creates, and everybody at the table is like, "Whoa, I want one of those."
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Oh, So he gets one of those, but we see the girl who we know is
With
connected to connected to him, put something in his drink. And Bond drinks it and whatever, and after a little bit he's like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, he realizes
not feeling good.
that it's
something's up.
What I love about that scene is, he gets up and the dealer's like, "No, you have to play," and he just grabs some chips and just throws them in.
Yeah, he's like, "Look, you can just have my money. I'm not even playing.
Yeah,
that's just free. I have to leave."
And then he runs out.
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't have picked this up when I first saw the movie, but he grabs a salt shaker and some water, and he grabs a glass and he goes to the bathroom, fills it up, puts all the salt in, just breaks open the thing, dumps all the salt in, so he can create a very salty solution. So when he drinks it, he'll throw up to get the poison out of the system, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
And he stumbles out and he almost gets hit by some cars, and he goes to the car, hooks up a phone or something to contact MI6, and he's like, "Guys, I'm about to die." You know what I mean? That's true.
He gives them a blood sample so that they figure out what
is going
he's
on.
Been given.
Yeah.
And
that's so cool. Even now, lots of times when tech is used in movies, it's either so unrealistic that it's not even good at its own time, or it's
and I like that it's not so much so that it feels outdated.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. It's not so unrealistic that we haven't gotten there yet. It's to the point where this could maybe be there, but it still feels really high tech, and this is spy gear.
Even then, if you see Bond's cell phone, it's not a smartphone, but I'm not like, what is that thing? It's so it
doesn't feel super low tech either. It's a good balance.
He goes, and they're telling him that he needs to use the defibrillator.
Yeah,
and he goes to do it, but he realizes that he hasn't even plugged in one of the ends.
Yeah,
and I love that. One night, he's basically helping Vesper.
Yeah.
And then the next night, she's literally helping to save his life, too.
Yeah. One minor issue I have with that, though, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, is the issue is he's pressing the button for the defibrillator to go off so he can save his own life. But like you said, one of the wires isn't there, and he passes out before he can put the wire in. But then Vesper shows up, doesn't know anything of what's happening, sees the defibrillator and goes, "Oh, put the wire in the thing."
Well, it's I think the way I see it is it's pretty simple. There's 2 wires that go into it.
Sure.
He didn't put one in. Clearly, he's got the things attached to him.
Yeah.
I kind of would assume, he must need.
I don't know. Maybe
that's how I took it.
Sure, and like I said, I don't want to dwell on this too much. I don't think it's a big issue. Yeah. I think if I was in the situation, I'd go, he shocked himself and now he's either dead or passed out. Yeah. I wouldn't go, "Oh, he wasn't able to yet." Oh. You know what I mean? And in the dark,
I never thought of that.
Here's a wire, and here's a place I can put the wire, and then I press you see what I mean? It just feels
in the dark, his door is open, and all car doors, if the door is open, there's going to be a light. So, but I
don't know if there was. There's some light going in. It's just, if this was during the day, it would be easier. I don't know. Like I said, not a super big deal, but I was like, I don't know. But after he gets poisoned, he kind of fixes himself, gets all dressed up again, and Vesper's like, "You can't go back in there. You almost just died." And he's like, "Yeah, no, but I have to."
Yeah.
Pretty much it doesn't matter. And this, I think, I didn't even realize until just now, this is enforcing the idea of this is my job.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
MI6 doesn't care that I just died.
Yeah.
I have
to keep on going. It doesn't matter. If I go in there, I'm expecting to have to run into something again.
Yeah.
But I have to keep on going into danger. That's just who I am.
Well, and imagine the threat when both Lashif and his girlfriend know, Bond's dead, and then he comes back.
Yeah, the face that Lashif has is like,
"You've got to be kidding me."
But you died. I got better. You know that from Monty Python? Yeah.
So, so this is really, I guess, the end of that chapter, because
I think
the game ends pretty quickly. And
well, because Bond wins off of it really looks like he's gonna lose because Lashif has a crazy hand, and then Bond has I think the highest thing you can get for the numbers that were put on the table.
Yeah.
So he wins. Everything is cool. Let's go.
And Vesper's kind of still mad.
Yeah.
She's just like, I can't believe you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, maybe if I would have just put my trust in him, everything would have been fine.
Yeah, because, I mean, poker's kind of a game of egos.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And she repeatedly says that he has a big one. So, there you go. But after that, they have dinner. And they're just kind of talking and whatever. And this is where we get into another issue for me. Right? Because after they have dinner, unless there's anything you want to say about dinner, because I know, like, with time we're trying to... she gets, like, a text from Mathis. And it's like, oh, Mathis needs me. And then she leaves, and he's just, like, enjoying his food. And then he goes, wait a second. Mathis. And then he goes after her and is just in time to see her being kidnapped. But why does that set him off? I never understood that.
I think...
Why does he go, like...
I think what sort of tails it off is... I think the second night, it seems like Mathis just disappears, and you don't...
I thought he was there.
He was there for part of it,
Okay.
but he's not there for Bond to get poisoned.
Okay.
Because if Bond were to get poisoned, I feel like Mathis would have been involved.
Sure.
It wouldn't have just been Vesper running out there.
Sure.
So I think that... well, that and in this business, you deal with double agents, and you kind of don't really know who to trust.
I
But
just don't know. I don't understand why that would tip him off in that moment when all Mathis has done has been good.
Yeah.
I don't think that Mathis did anything to make Juan go,
I think
keep an eye on this
I think
guy.
just because he wasn't there for the
poison. Could be. And
then Bond doesn't know that the girl poisoned him.
Yeah. No,
So it could have very easily been Mathis.
Sure, but we know that the girl poisoned him.
But he doesn't. So
I suppose
it could be one of those. It could be one of those things.
Yeah.
And then yeah, no, I just like it. I like that it's a human moment because she's like, you literally like almost died an hour ago.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a really one of their more human moments.
Yeah.
Where they first start to really respect each other.
Yeah. And that scene is definitely part of kind of the relationship arc between them. But because of like time and stuff, then I'm not trying to dwell too much. But we see that, and we're about to come up to another issue. But we see that Vesper has been kidnapped, and she gets thrown into the car. What's up?
I think that him chasing after Vesper is just to be like, hold up a minute. He doesn't know that she's about to get kidnapped.
Sure.
You know, he can't plan that. You know, he doesn't know that that's about to happen. He's just going to go try to stop her.
Sure. Okay.
He doesn't necessarily know what's going to happen.
Sure. And I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with what sets him off. But we've already like kind of gotten with that. But she gets kidnapped. And I have no issue with that. I'm going to let you know when we get to the issue. She gets kidnapped. She gets thrown in the car. He gets in the Aston Martin. We get a car chase. Let's go. And they're going through these like rolling hills and whatever. And he's going fast. He's going to the point where he like the whole car comes off of the road. And he does a little jump for style points. But he gets to just over a hill and he sees the Vesper's right in the road. And he's like, whoa! And he swerves and he starts flipping the car. Yeah, just going crazy. And it's
one
like,
of the greatest car wreck scenes ever. I used to love that scene.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then maybe this will knock it down a peg. Because when that happens, we don't see any other cars around. But they don't... It seems like he was right behind them. So when did they have the time... Well, let me just present the issue and then you hit me with the facts. But I don't understand when they have the time to stop the car, take Vesper out, put her carefully on the ground, because she doesn't look beat up. It doesn't look like she was thrown from the car.
Yeah.
And if she was, that might be enough to take Vesper out. But they put her down, then drive I think 2 cars off so you can't see them, or at least we don't see them.
We don't see them. I don't think we just don't see them in the shot.
And it could be. But the main issue is how do they take Vesper out? And just lie her on the ground.
I think they were quick enough to get her out of the car and move the cars off the side. Because when
fast.
we see Bond chasing them, but there's the scene where we see him chasing the people, but the road's kind of curved.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I think they're a little further ahead
Okay.
than what we think.
I'd be open to checking that. It seemed like he was pretty close.
So and it's so quick, in fact, that Bond's just trying to catch up.
Sure.
So he's not going to expect
no, yeah, no.
her to be in the. And
I think his reaction makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to go boom boom. Wait, why am I chasing them anymore? It was for her. Of course he's gonna like, and he has feelings for her and all that. So I have no issue with that. I just have an issue with the mechanics of how do they get her out of the car. You know?
Maybe this is a real world thing where I can sort of fix that.
Give me an education.
So
there you go.
Last week, my dad's car ran out of gas on the side of the road. Okay. On the side of the highway.
Yeah.
So I had to go help him out.
Yeah.
And we had to go try to jumpstart his car and my car.
Yeah.
Jumper cables weren't long enough.
Uh-oh.
So when we were on 70, there was nobody around us. We could see people, but it was enough that we could do a U-turn on the interstate.
Yeah.
So even though, cars are going fast and it's like there's a little bit of distance, I mean, it kind of feels a little more realistic than you'd think, oh, no, this car is, 30 seconds behind.
Yeah.
So time-wise, for me, it works out.
Okay. I
for me, it works out where it's enough.
Plausible.
For me, because in my situation, it was just enough time where my dad could get the car turned around and in the right direction and not in the road or anything. So it kind of But it's also a pretty tightly paced scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be open. I'm totally open to like checking it out a couple more times, watching it over and over. Mm-hmm. What I find to be more convincing is the argument you made just before this of the road is kind of curved. Yeah. So it could be that I have a bad perception of just how close he is.
Yeah. Because if you take that curved road and you stretch it out.
Sure. Yeah. And that on top of the fact that if they throw her in the car, how quickly does Bond get to his car, turn it on, see where they're going, and follow? Yeah. That gives them time. Yeah. So I'm fine with putting that to the side.
Which, we don't see that. It just cuts to an open sort of country road.
Yeah. The next thing is they have the car chase. He almost hits her. He goes over. He flips the car. And then he gets taken out of the car.
What I love about this scene is we've never seen Bond broken down yet. Okay. We've seen him beat up and bruised, and he's definitely had his share of, hits and bumps and bruises. Yeah. But like a regular normal car chase, that would mess anybody up. Yeah. You're not going to get out of this car and
be totally fine. Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate that because I'm a really big fan of the Daredevil Netflix show. Mm-hmm. And there, they have damage, hurt. Whereas in lots of superhero stuff, it's just like, eh. Yeah. And you have a lot of action movies that are like that, too. Where it's like, you cannot shrug that off. There's no way. And I appreciate that they kind of go like, yeah, he's down for the count for this. Like, and when the bad guys all roll up, they can kind of do whatever they want to him in the situation.
If they wanted to shoot him in the head right there, game over, done.
Well, and it shows just how out of it he is that they don't do that, and still they can do whatever, because they bring them to a completely different location. This, warehouse or, decommissioned submarine, or I don't even know. Yeah. But just, or no, because they drove to it, so never mind. But it's like this rusty metal place or whatever. And this is where we get to, I don't think we're going to cover the details of what happens right here. But they kind of cut out a chair and strip him down and sit him down. And
this is one of the greatest scenes in the movie.
Yeah, it's really intense, and it's interesting to watch James Bond in a torture scene, still being so comedic. Yeah, still just going like, "Hey, I'm messing around with you because I've gone through torture training."
Yeah, he's done he's done all sorts of training. So if you think,
you're gonna get information from me.
He provokes Le Chiffre.
Yeah, he's telling him, "No, do it more." Yeah. Whatever it is that, and you guys can check it out. And if you've seen this movie, you remember what we're talking about. But for monetization purposes, potentially, maybe best to stray away. But the way that scene ends, I have yet another issue. Mm-hmm. Which it was funny because when we talked about this briefly yesterday, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying, "Oh, this is really cool because it's so different from Bond normally." Do you want to explain the scene? I present my issue, and then you present either why it's maybe not bad or just your
Do you
point
mean
of view.
when Mr. White appears? Okay,
Yeah,
so
Walter White. No, it's not him.
So my understanding is that Lashif may not be a part of Spectre,
Yeah.
but like the African company you meet in the beginning, he probably has a lot to do with Spectre's money.
Yeah.
So Spectre is just one of those companies. They send out Mr. White because Lashif lost all our money, and we are done with you.
Yeah, because we were saying that the poker game was his last-ditch effort, and he lost. So it is really bad
and
for
people
him.
find out quick.
Yeah.
They
apparently.
have tabs on that game. They're going to figure out what happened to that game.
Yeah.
So what happens is we get a Bond villain who Bond doesn't kill or Bond doesn't do something to make this guy get killed.
Yeah.
And
because what happens to Lashif?
Lashif begs for his life, and Mr. White shoots him in the head.
Yeah. He was just
one
like,
shot,
You're done. Yeah. And I understand why that would be entertaining in a, hey, we got some variety type of sense. The issue that I have with it is possibly mainly because this is my first and like primary Bond film. I don't like it in stories when the main character is in a situation and they are not the ones to fix it, because then it seems like a passive resolution to the climax. And for this, it almost, maybe I have a misunderstanding of this term, but it almost seems like Deus Ex Machina, because it's just like out of nowhere, suddenly, something that's not really foreshadowed. It makes sense in the context of the series, but it's not really foreshadowed that he just shows up, kills the villain, walks away.
How I see it is Mr. White's just not coming in there.
Okay.
It's, you learn in the beginning that Lashif is like, listen, I deal with a lot of countries' money.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me
that if he loses, someone would come after him.
If he loses, these countries aren't going to wait for him to answer or go into hiding.
Yeah.
They're going to send out one of their best guys.
Sure.
Because they want to know what's happening to their money.
Yeah.
So for us, yes, and in the context, it's like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
But in another real sense, Lashif is going to have a lot of enemies.
Sure.
And really, his best bet would be to have Bond take him in and put him in some sort of protective custody.
Yeah. And I think he mentions that kind of like, well, I think he's torturing Bond.
Just to get the money.
To get the money back. Because then he's like, then no one's going to be on my
back.
back.
Bond doesn't know Mr. White's coming.
Yeah. And that's the kind of the issue I have with that. So, you know what I mean? It's not that he's waiting out the torture because he's like, oh, salvation's coming. Mm-hmm. He's going, oh, hi.
Yeah.
Are you going to shoot me? No?
But the fear Mr. White has or gives to Lashif is so great because in the beginning Lashif is this...
He's the top dog.
He's this top dog, and then he's like, wait, I'll get the money. And Lashif doesn't even say a word.
Yeah. Well, no, I think he does. Mr. White. No, because he says what's more important than the money is like knowing who we can trust.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like...
And then he's just boom. Yeah. And just one shot.
And it's just whatever. He's like, I'm not messing around.
It's not as personal as I'm going to shoot you a bunch of times. It's one shot in the head.
Yeah, he's just a professional, and he's gone. James Bond recovers. Mm-hmm. Or like he's in recovery. Yeah. And... again, there's another issue because Mathis shows up and James knows that Mathis is dirty because...
Or he assumes...
No, he knows because... Well, I say he knows. You can tell me if I'm wrong. He knows that he's dirty because Lashif says, hey, your buddy Mathis is actually my buddy Mathis. You see what I mean? So he reveals that. So James knows that Mathis is dirty. And we can say like, oh... This guy was lying. Mads Mikkelsen was lying. I have no reason to think that James would think that he's lying to him about that. You know what I mean?
And it just goes to show how much maybe Mathis, who's supposed to be the smart character, doesn't know.
Sure.
He doesn't know that Lashif gave this information up.
Sure.
Or supposedly gave this. So he's thinking he's all good playing both sides.
Sure. But the thing is that James watches Mathis put something into his water and then give it to him. Mm-hmm. I don't know why James would then drink it going, you're dirty.
I think...
You know what I mean? Like you're a double crosser.
I think because maybe it made him remember when he got poisoned and Mathis wasn't there. He was just tortured by Lashif, and he might not. We don't even see Bond go. We just cut to the next scene, and he's back.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't really, I don't think, fully understand what happened.
Okay.
So he's been through a lot in literally the last couple of days where where I'm sure he's on edge.
Sure.
He's thinking, you know, who's.
But then I feel like you're arguing my point though, is because then why would he drink what he's given from Mathis? You see what I mean?
I don't know.
And I'm not saying that this is the case for you. For me, with the car scene with Vesper getting out of the car, that's something that I would be open to watching it again to see. I don't know if this applies to you. Because this then leads to another issue, because he drinks the stuff.
Yeah.
And then Mathis is like, oh, like, can you give me any more information and whatever? And he's like, I'm not giving you any more information.
Maybe he just feels like Mathis is poking around a little too much.
But
because
here's the issue,
he
though.
had that recollection at the dinner scene.
Sure. But what I'm saying is that right after that happens, two security guards come and shock Mathis asleep and drag him off.
Yeah.
That means that they also know that Mathis is dirty. Yeah. But
or at least he's let them know.
But when? We don't get to see that at all.
Yeah, but we don't have to see every scene of the movie. It could be just implied.
I suppose.
I mean, you're not watching every scene of them. If you see somebody in a scene getting ready for the day,
sure,
you don't have to
see them brushing their teeth, drinking their coffee. That's what I want to see.
Taking the first pee of the day.
That is exactly what I'm communicating to you right now.
I just finished this 2-hour movie, and it's supposed to take place in 24 hours. I didn't see 24 hours worth of a 2-hour movie.
Exactly.
So
I just want to see an empty field. I want to see that field where they drove. But
he's also at a hospital, so if he's going to get poisoned, he's kind of at the best place to be.
I suppose.
So.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying of like we don't have to see every single thing.
Yeah, because I think a lot of things can be up for interpretation.
Sure.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Just a tiny rewrite. I think it would have been cool if Mathis gave him the stuff, and then he didn't drink it. Mathis is like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And then he gets shocked, and it's like, "Hey, we all kind of know. We all kind of talked behind your back."
But that could have been sitting there before Mathis got there. So maybe Bond is like, "Oh, a nurse." Set it there, and Mathis is just.
I don't know, maybe.
Or maybe it's just like a seltzer sort of a thing. Like, here, help me settle my stomach. Put this in my drink. You know, we don't.
I guess. Mathis says, "Hey, they told me that I have to give this to you."
Yeah.
And I feel like if anybody said that to me, I'd be like, especially if I thought they were a double agent, I'd be like,
Well, you're probably not really up to taking anything after you've just been poisoned.
Well, look, again, you're arguing my point. Let's go. I like it. But everything is seeming real good because Mathis is out of the way. All the bad guys seem to be out of the way.
But the movie's not over.
There's like 25 minutes left. And it's a lot of us seeing that like Bond and Vesper have arrived. Yeah. They are in a relationship. They're in love. They're telling it to each other.
Bond's quitting MI6.
Yeah, he quits because he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Because this whole through line of Vesper saying, this is not a good job.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be working here. This is like messing you up.
Well, and they realize that they actually really do care about each other. Yeah. They've obviously shared some life experience in the last few days.
Definitely. Yeah, and they've been there for each other, and they're like,
but this is a important character arc for Bond because you only ever see him married once before in the 1969 On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Okay. That's so weird because that's the title that came to mind for some reason, and I don't know anything about Bond.
And this is just one of those important storylines of, Bond, he as is said in the movie, he takes off his armor. Yeah. He lets somebody in. Yeah. And then it comes to bite him in the butt. Yeah. Majorly.
Do you want to talk about what happens? So they're all good. They're going to Venice.
Yeah, they're basically sailing across the world, really. Yeah. And at one point, we see in the hospital that the guy comes and Bond gets his money. And so they're on this trip. And he basically, you see him email M and say, I'm done.
Like I'm done, yeah.
But then she calls him and she's like, yeah, I got your resignation letter, but there's this guy here from like the Swiss bank or whatever who needs your banking information.
Yeah, like we don't have any of the winnings from the game.
So at
like,
this
what
point,
happened?
he sort of goes out and he tails Vesper.
Yeah, because she just had to leave for a second. And it's like,
And it turns out that she's got other reasons. She's not trying to betray him in any major way. She really does love him.
Yeah.
And they really could spend the rest of their lives together.
Yeah. But in reality, what's going on is that Vesper was either married or
she
engaged
has some
or
sort
something.
Of debts that.
Well, no, there was a person that they were threatening to hurt.
Yeah, so
if she didn't kind of go along with their plans.
So she has to pay
yeah.
them off.
Yeah, the deal was she would make sure that they got the money, and in return they would leave both her and Bond alive, and also this other person would go without being tortured.
Yeah.
And Bond didn't know any of this. He's trying to kill all the bad guys, get the money back to MI6, and save Vesper, but he's not able to do everything.
He fails.
Yeah, he fails at everything except for killing all the bad guys. Or he doesn't even kill all the bad guys because Mr. White walks out. Which, we get to another issue where the suitcase falls down into the water in like the building that's like kind of collapsing and whatever. And by the end of the scene, Mr. White just is walking out with the suitcase, and it's like,
I always just chalk that up to it just floated away. Because I feel like if you take all these points and go, but we didn't see this or this happen.
Sure.
I feel like that's just trying to nitpick it a little bit.
Could be.
Because I just feel like it,
I could see it just sinking.
Mr. White got his money. Because I feel like, obviously, when he goes to kill Le Chiffre, Bond doesn't have the money.
Sure.
So I guess I guess that's why he decided to keep Bond alive, because if Bond isn't there to get the money,
well, but
who gets the money?
Yeah, nobody has the money at that point because it's in a bank account.
Exactly.
And he gives
so
the
really,
money.
He couldn't have killed Bond.
And I'm not saying that he should have killed Bond.
No, I'm just saying that he couldn't, because he's still got to wait for this money. Because either way, he's gonna get this money.
I agree. But I just think that there should have been a shot. Yeah. I think there should have been 2 extra shots in the movie.
I just think it's a little too nitpicky.
One is of Mr. White even being there. And the other one is of Mr. White grabbing the money, and then we see him leave.
Up until No Time to Die, this was the longest running Bond.
Sure.
So for you to add a 2-second shot of...
I'm fine with that.
Suitcase in the water, like that,
I didn't even say that we need that. I didn't say that we needed that. I explicitly said what the 2 shots are.
To me, it's important that Bond's not worried about the money.
Sure.
He's worried about killing these guys and saving Vesper.
Sure.
He doesn't even realize that Mr. White's there. I don't think nobody else realizes that Mr. White's there.
Sure, and he doesn't see Mr. White leave, but we see that shot.
He's not a part of Vesper's group.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just sort of takes the money and is out of there, which worked for me.
Yeah, and I'm fine with agreeing to disagree. I think that if it needs to be there, it needs to be there, even if it makes the movie longer, and if that means we shave off some seconds from other scenes, then I'm fine with doing that.
But if you do too many of those types of things, then it just throws off the pacing.
I suppose.
And then it's like, that's like saying, oh, only movies over 3 hours long are good.
No, and I don't agree that that's the case.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I'm saying that the shots that need to be there need to be there, and I think that that's a shot. Those are 2 shots that need to be there.
Maybe. I don't know.
And like I said, I'm fine with agreeing
to disagree. Edit your own
disagree.
version and add it. We'll have to...
Yeah, it'll just be me as Mr. White. That I look a lot like him, so I mean, it'll work. So, but after that, we have... he's trying to save everything. One of the things that I said he was trying to do is save Vesper. But Vesper seems to not be trying to be saved.
Well, I mean... She's in a locked...
Yeah, but she locks herself in.
But
she locks it and takes the key out.
But I think part of that is her realizing, even if I'm alive, things are not going to be what they were 20 minutes ago.
I guess.
I see that as she betrayed Bond, and even though she had her own reasons, and she didn't tell him those reasons, and he might not even get to realize those reasons.
Well, he does, but yeah. Because M tells him after.
Yeah,
she doesn't know that. She doesn't know that. I'm fine.
He doesn't know that he's going to find out why.
Sure.
So I feel like that's just him that's just her way of going like, I kind of deserve this. I betrayed your trust.
I suppose.
Because they are in love.
She has a really good reason for betraying him.
Yeah.
Because she's trying to save somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And I think that if she was thinking, oh, he hates me now, there's no way we can actually be in a relationship, then that turns around when he jumps into the water after her and he's sinking there with her, trying to break open the cage. Yeah. She still has the key. Yeah. She can unlock it and let herself out, and she doesn't.
She chooses not to.
She goes to the opposite side of the like elevator thing, and she purposely like gets rid of all her air to like kill herself quicker. Yeah, but it's not that she's just sitting there; she's doing that on purpose. Yeah. So it was just confusing to me.
I always took it as she realized that she deserves this. There's no way that she gets up and is not arrested. You know, I feel like if MI6 realizes. Because in a way, she's almost as bad as Lashif. She's going to take the money and she's going to use it for her benefit.
I suppose.
You know.
Yeah.
So, which isn't necessarily what the movie's about.
Yeah.
But it just shows that
that's interesting.
That each group has their own means.
Sure.
They have their own end that they need to meet.
Yeah.
And her end. Which we don't realize because she keeps up a good wall. And Bond breaks his down.
Yeah.
You know?
That's interesting to think about. That we don't think that she has a wall.
Yeah.
And she does the entire time.
It seems like she broke hers down just like he did his.
Yeah. But, especially just because of time, I have more things I want to say, but because of time. Do you want to touch on lesson learned? What is the lesson that Bond learns in this movie? Do you remember?
I mean, it's really like...
It's the classic spy lesson.
Can't trust anybody.
Exactly. Trust no one.
You know? And he truly, truly loved her. Yeah. And you still feel it throughout the rest of the series with him. This isn't something that he can just get over. And clearly, if you watch Quantum of Solace, he is not over it.
Yeah.
He is not at all, which is... I think is really interesting.
Yeah. Because with Bond being such a womanizer... You'd think like, oh, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
Not in this case, but it's cool to see a case where it does matter a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And at the end, he is able to track down Mr. White. He puts a bullet in his knee, and
I really like that scene.
Yeah, I think it's good
because it's like, yes, you didn't kill me, and I don't even think Bond really realizes that Mr. White stole.
Yeah, because he said he didn't see the shooter.
Yeah, so, but clearly, this guy who killed someone like Lashif is going to be pretty connected.
Yeah.
And there must be more to it, and I love that Bond just tracks him down. Yeah. And you get the famous James Bond line.
There you go, and that's what ends the movie.
Yeah.
And we had a couple, or a few more things that we wanted to talk about, but at least for now, we're going to be wrapping up. And this will probably not be the end of the podcast. And I can talk to you about like what we can do for the rest of this. But that was Casino Royale.
Yeah.
This has been a good chunk of time. But
longer than an hour.
Definitely longer than an hour. I'll tell you how long it's been once I hit stop recording. But if this is the end for the both of us talking for this podcast, then thank you very much for
thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, for joining me. And I definitely want to have you on again.
Yeah.
Let's do it up. We'll just figure out when works and what topic we want to talk about. It probably won't be Quantum of Solace.
Yeah, that's
fine. To jump around to different things. But hey, who knows? We might return to talking about James Bond. And we will catch you guys next time, transitioning over to